All right. Welcome to Nollywood Film Club. I'm Mr. C, a Veroca critic. This is the last space of the year, as I think you might hear. Not the last podcast that you lucky guys are going to be getting more. You lucky devils, you. I'm going to I'm going to be working on some of the podcast episodes. They're things from the vault, but I'm going to have to be giving them a few listens. So it's worth rating the podcast in your in your various platforms. No, also this film we discussed today, I think, has generated a lot of buzz. I think we have also asked for feedback on how we can make NFC better. We have big plans for 2024. So if you follow us on Twitter, please do. You can do it anonymously. There's a thing. There's a little link you can use to do anonymously if you wanted to do that. Or you can reach out in private. We will never reveal your identity. We're very secret like that. But anyway, but all in all, I think this was a good conversation. We have several talks about the time periods, and we have good pushback section. Filmmakers come on, and like I say, filmmakers come on. Sometimes, like they have a different juice. They have a different buzz that they bring on, and that may be sometimes really positive, and sometimes like in more in response to the way we just do things at Nollywood Film Club. I think you see that when it comes on. Anyway, the general gist is it should be an entertaining one. This is the first prime commissioned film. So I just hope you enjoy Nollywood Film Club discussing Breath of Life. Welcome to our final Nollywood Film Club Space of the Year. It's good to have you guys with us. We are going to be discussing a Nollywood movie like we do every week, Sunday, 6 p.m. Watts, but not for the next few Sundays. But something else to do with your time. We will be discussing Breath of Life. We'll discuss what we liked. We'll discuss what we don't like. We'll have pushback, and then we'll do a summary to round up. Okay, if you do want to speak, you can request to be a speaker, or you can just comment underneath the space, and we'll have your part read. We lock shop after 10 speakers. Yes. All right. Okay. So first speaker is making a guest appearance again. Cynthia, Cynthia, please tell us some of the things you liked about Breath of Life.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if you can hear me. Yeah. So the first thing. Okay, great, which is great because I just have 1 hour to spend here. Okay. The first thing I like about Breath of Life was the ode to me, and Wale Ojo. And it's not the acting I like, it's just that for a lot of time in the movie, I just enjoyed seeing his beautiful face. So that's like the first thing I like. His face really carried me throughout some parts of this movie. When I see him, I'm like, yes, okay, let's go. The second thing I like, which is a serious thing now, is Echo Ewedo's acting and the daughter. So the car scene was literally the only emotional scene I felt in this movie. And it was how she interacted with her doctor at that scene. And the doctor is like, will we see more? Are we going to see daddy again? Or what is going on? Like, it's hide and seek, her tearing the clothes to cover her eyes, her putting her hand in the window. Yeah, so the casting was really emotional, and I think Eku Ewedo delivered a very good performance. She's someone I naturally like, whether she's performing well or she's underperforming. But for this casting, I will have to give her and the girl that played the daughter. They really, really, really elevated the scene, and it was like the only emotional scene I felt in this movie. So yes, good for them. I also like Elijah's acting in some parts, or most parts of the movie. I like the character Elijah and his performance. Um, what else? I felt this movie had some comedy that was good because I saw myself laughing at some scenes which I cannot remember or pinpoint to now because my head is all over the place. But yeah, I saw myself. I could, if I can remember, I know I laughed at some scenes because the comedy was good. There were some other scenes I laughed. I don't know if they were trying to be or if I was trying to be funny, but I just laughed because it was hilarious. So we have the scene of Elijah when they wanted to have sex and him like gasping out for breath. It was funny. Is it Elijah that is his name? Yes, it's Elijah. Yeah. We also had the scene of Timi going to the church and be like, God, I've heard what you want to do. It was so hilarious. I had a good laugh. Yeah, so why they had good comedy in the movie, I also laughed at some scenes that were just hilarious. I don't know if it was supposed to be comedy, but I don't think so. Because they look like resolution or realization scenes, but I felt it was funny. Um then I was going to say something. Genoveva! Ah, why can I forget? So Genoveva, so this is one of the few movies of Genoveva that I have actually enjoyed the acting. And this is because, so I'm going to also use myself as an example when I'm going to describe emotions. So Genoveva has a one face fits all emotion. The same with me. So she has a smiley face that anytime she's trying to show other emotion that is not happy or joyous, it looks very forced and unnatural. So she's someone that needs to work on how a smiley face can be used to show other emotions. But that's by the way. But in this movie, a lot of times she had to put up that unnatural smiley face, especially in the romance montage and everything. And it was beautiful to watch her. So I don't think it was a directing thing or anything. It was just that she had to act with a natural smiley face, and I really enjoyed it. And it's one of the few movies I've actually enjoyed acting. Um, what else? Ah, Genoveva, Ecuador, Elijah, comedy. Yeah, I think is that all? Wait, I'm coming. Is my time up? I'm still thinking.
You still have to.
Okay. I have to think. I have to think. Um, yeah. Ah, that's what I can think of. Yeah. So just those things. That's all I can think of. Is that all? Is that all? Is that? Oh yeah. I mean, even though I was not happy with the whole timeline stuff, I also felt they put in effort with dressing the person that played Princess Alexandra. Um, but yeah. So that's all. That's all I can think of. Yeah.
All right. No worries. Thanks, Cynthia. All right. Some love going to Genevieve. All right. Next is Elizabeth. Please, can you tell us some of the things you liked about Breath of Life?
So this film for me is going to be similar to what we did last week, in my opinion. Some of the things, anyways. So I'll dive right in, which really means that some of the things I like are also the things that I do not like. So, but let's get number one is I love stylized movies. Like I love stylized movies, and I think this was going for something stylized, right? They have this color thing going on, like bubblegum. I felt like there was a lot of bubblegummy thing going on in a way that is supposed to lend credence to the overall tone, right? I don't know if they probably didn't nail it, but I think this is what is going on in this. It has this Bridgerton feel thing going on in a world in a world that's supposed to be unreal, right? It's supposed to take on reality, but doesn't feel like it ever happened or it existed. I think I like that because a lot of the colors going on, the pink, the blue, bright pink, the houses that do not look lived in like a set. I feel like, and again, if you add in the some of the comic timing thing in the directing, that some of the scenes that come off, like when he took out his gun to shoot random people coming to his house, like, throwing, smashing the plates at the wall, the when Elijah told the patients to give Anna his pamphlet. So again, editing probably did not show up there, but yes, you see the vision that they were trying to go for, right? So I like a stylized film. I think this was supposed to be stylized. I don't know if they even achieved it, but I really like the idea of an overall feel to it. So yes, yay me for saying the stylized Nigerian film that felt really good. Okay, so the second thing that I like is I like films that are hinged on human interaction to drive a character's growth, right? I love them a lot. There's one that is similar, The Man Who Does Not Know How to Die. That's a man called Otto, but based on the other book. Um, I also liked As Good as It Gets. That's a rom-com though, but you see how the characters, how I think what's his name, Jack Nicholson's character was just an ass, and then how interacting with other humans in places where his character decided. But anyways, point is this film is supposed to be hinged on that, right? Again, did they execute it? Well, we'll discuss that later. But I like the idea that human interaction helped a character's arc. There is a mutual growth thing going on from one character to the other. And I really, really, really do enjoy films about second chance, redeeming oneself through helping another person, like making conscious effort to become a better person. Anyways, now this is what I like about the overall idea of the film. Now, what do I like about the other things? I like the colors. Again, maybe brings me back to my bubblegum thing. I like the color, especially that scene where he being Timi went to kill that bike person. Again, did they achieve some of the things in lighting? Maybe not, but then the color there was perfect. I liked the color, and then I liked how the house sat, like in the middle of nowhere, and then there's the moon shining from the left. I thought it was fantastic. It's picturesque. Again, this film has a lot of these kind of scenes, right, where you have colors scattered, like nice cinematography in maybe not cinematography. Maybe I should put like picture, right, like stills, nice colors, angle thing going on. This film has a lot of that. So I really it did add to. I like some of the music. Now, is the use of music perfect? Nope. We'll talk about that later. But I like some of the songs. Another thing, look, if you're looking for Bez, you've not found him. He's on Spotify, but it doesn't seem like you've seen him anywhere mainstream. Don't worry, you'll find him in the BB Sasore's film. I really like the idea. When I heard Bez voice, I'm like, yeah, this is my guy. I like a lot of other things going on. The acting. I liked what's his face? Young Timmy. Um yeah, because I always
Ademola
thought,
Adedoyin.
yeah, thank you very much. I always felt like his performance sometimes they hit or miss, right? There's some films you were like, yeah, it's just remaining that thing, but here he showed up to work, like he was ready to wow everyone. I really enjoyed it. Yes, what's his face? The other young person who needs to stop acting a very young person. He's always that's Elijah's character. He's always been good. I like Genevieve's performance, not a lot. She still got that constipated anger and sadness face thing going on. But, I really did enjoy the romance, sometimes, not the romance, but I like the meet cute-ish thing going on. I think that's it for me. Okay, fine. My time is up. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Elizabeth. All right. If you want to send in your list of things you like, you can just comment underneath the space. Ewere, please go on and tell us some of the things you liked about Butterfly.
I haven't
Before
joined Film Club in a while, so how many minutes do I have?
it's 5 minutes.
Okay, good. I think I can do that. So I really liked the casting. Everyone has said that, like the younger characters, the throwback characters. I'm happy to see Ekedewo on screen. Wale Ojo, he looked angelic. Like there's something the grey hair did to him, and then the colors and everything. I love the casting, and then yeah. Another thing is that I liked some parts of the story, major parts of the story. It looked well thought out compared to what I've watched this year from most of Nollywood. So yeah. And I think another part was that I don't know if it's a faith-based film, but I'll call it that. I like the fact that it didn't shy away from death. I don't know if they handled grief well, but I like the fact that it didn't shy away from death. I like the music going to, but like she mentioned, I don't know if they used it properly. But then you're watching it, and then the songs stand out. But I don't know if they added anything to the scene. But I really like the choice of, like, the score and choice of songs that they handled decided to go with. I love the cinematography. I like that it really looked good. And then I'm saying this because I really didn't like it in God Calling, and I'm not a huge fan of effects in movies, but then I see a lot of improvement and I really liked it. Yeah, and I think like it tried to pull like some emotional strings, and I think he was able to do that for many people. So that's a plus. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, this is a
Why
very
are we
measured
laughing?
second for somebody who wanted to fight me. Oh. Okay, all right. Oh, what's all your vim? Anyway, no, thanks, Aweri. Ichena, do you want to tell us the things you liked about Breath of Fire?
Yeah, I thought that this was really well directed. I expected it to be because God Calling I felt was also well directed. I did not like God Calling, but I felt that it was a well constructed film for what I saw of it. But I mean, the thing about this movie that I found outstanding is that typically when I watch Nollywood movies, I usually watch them kind of with one eye while I'm also working and doing something else, or in some cases I just really listen to them because they tend to be so aggressively verbal that you can just watch a movie without even looking at the screen and you don't miss anything. But this is a movie that I found that when I tried to work while watching it, that I couldn't do it. I had to keep my eyes on the screen or else I would miss some of the story because a lot of the storytelling was actually done visually, which is something that you don't see a lot. And there was a lot of really good stuff to look at on the screen. So in terms of just the way, the director uh, framed the shots, from the way the director arranged the objects and the characters on the screen, from the way the camera moved, I felt that the directing was really good in that way. You had the drone shots, meaningful drone shots, which is something that you don't often see. Drone shots that are used with purpose and are used to evoke a particular emotion or convey a particular idea. That was done fantastically. So I was very pleased with that. I loved the cinematography most of the time. Like for example, that scene where the young Timi confronts Baby Hellfire. I know that a lot of people have cited that one. That scene just looked fantastic. That was good. The special effects also were done very well, very subtly, where you didn't even notice that they were effects, and that's what you want effects to do. The editing also is not particularly noticeable because it was doing its job. It didn't draw attention to itself. So what else did I say? Costumes were great. That was done by Daniel Obasi, so of course they're going to be great. He's always really good. I thought the casting was really good as well. I mean, like for example, the young and the old Timi, they kind of did resemble each other, not just physically, but in terms of their general carriage and temperament. You could see a continuity and believe that that could be the same person at different stages in their life. Ecuador did not have a lot of screen time, but for the time that she was there, she was completely expressive, even with very little dialogue, just from her gestures. And visually, she did it. Visually, I felt that she really, really did look like an elite lady in Southwest Nigeria in the 1960s. I think that she really did capture that. And in general, I think they did a good job capturing the time periods, both the 60s and the. I don't know what the other time period was, to be honest. It could have been 1995 or it could have been 2003. But regardless, it did give me a general sense of that 90s to early 2000s period in Nigeria. And I think that also um, can be credited to not just really smart production design, but again, really good directing. Like I think about that Scorsese quote that cinema is what is in the frame and what's not. And when you think about the things that they chose to show and the things that they chose not to show, it just really conveyed the particular image that they were going for. So what else would I say? The music again. Music is something that consistently frustrates me in most Nollywood pictures because it tends to be so overbearing and so manipulative and overused. But in this case, I felt that they did it subtly again, a very fine touch. Um, I like the storybook feel that you have, especially at the beginning during Timi's origin story. Essentially, it had the feel of a Pixar movie or something like that. Um, in some ways, I think that I don't know, I would be surprised to find out that the director in that case was being influenced by something like Jean-Pierre Genet's Amélie or something like that, because it did have that kind of a storybook feel. What else I say? Okay, one more thing. Genoveva, yeah, she's great in everything that I've ever seen her in. She was great in this. All right.
Okay, more Genevieve love. All right, I'm just going to read some of the comments. Nollywood Must Change says, "I like that there is an idea." Oh my God, what a foul for such a regular member of NFC. Anyway, he said, "I like there is an idea. Chimezie is a good actor. Genevieve is okay, and I like her chemistry with Chimezie. I like the aesthetics they are trying to give. Bimbo Manuel is a good actor. Production-wise, it's good. I love the coloring of the black skins." All right. And then Lamy says, the major things I liked about the movie were the story, the opening, the first 19 minutes of the movie, and the scene in the church at the end. The acting and the cinematography was really nice to watch. And then where it says, I forgot to highlight Iku's red lips. All right. Alana, do you want to tell us some of the things you liked about Breath of Life?
Yeah. Some of the things I liked about Breath of Life, first of all, I think the writing in general, the story was, I like the pacing of the story. I didn't check how long I didn't check how long it was for. However, I liked the pacing. I like that they were able to show us about 2 or 3 different time periods, and each of the time periods, like, they kept it within a certain um time in the movie. So it wasn't like, okay, so how do we get to when do we get to main the main part? It was that each time period went on for as long as it needed to go on for. I like the casting. I really, really like the casting. I like that the older Timi Johnson and the younger Timi Johnson favored each other. So you could see how they could be having a transition from that person, the younger version of him, to the older version of him. I think the first speaker mentioned just loving the sight of Wale Ojo. And yes, Wale Ojo is actually a very aesthetically pleasing man, and I love the sight of him. I also love the sight of Adedoyin. So I just really enjoyed watching them, and I enjoyed watching the, like, call it, the father-son relationship between Wale Ojo and Chimezie. I like that they complemented each other. I like that while one person was more of a fiery, it was a very fiery, grumpy guy, the other person was like, it basically was like a lot of relationships between older and younger people, I guess. Wale was a jaded older man who had gone through whatever he had gone through in life, his grief and all. Ah, fuck. Yeah, fuck. I had a feeling. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know
Are you
what's
okay?
going on. Ah, fuck.
Yeah,
I don't think you can hear us. Can you hear us? Okay. All right. Okay.
Can someone else speak in case Alana can hear them?
No. No, I don't think. I think she's had issues with Elon.
Yeah. Oh.
Elon has sacked her. All right. No worries. She can finish when she comes back, but more praise for Genevieve. All right. We'll go to Vanessa. Vanessa, do you want to?
Yes, and everybody, let's pray that my internet stays at 4G and doesn't left to read because I'm on the train. But I'm gonna start by speaking on the superfluous beauty in this film. Um,
Hey,
that's
okay, all right. Your network is doing the thing. All right, Vanessa, yeah. When you're off the train, Vanessa, try and see if you can come back. All right. Wow. Indica, do you want to tell us? Indica, do you want to tell us the things you liked?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I think I have to start by saying that I really liked this film. I like the aesthetic. It lent itself to the aesthetic very well. There wasn't a time when it was ashamed of its aesthetic. It was unabashed about it. So I really liked that. I liked how dramatic it was. Like the scene when they were going to destroy the church and they were like counting down to it. It was so dramatic. The build was so good. I like um the burning. Okay, yeah, the scene where they killed Eku and the daughter. That was also another dramatic scene. The way the fire crept on the car and caught it. All those shots, yeah. So like you can tell these people wanted to make a film. Like I think it's the most film I've watched from Nollywood recently. Unlike most of the other films I've watched, this one you can tell these people want to make film. You can tell there's actual intention of making a good film. Like the shots are crafted. I tweeted earlier that it felt like a collage of some recreations of very iconic scenes, which I still think it is. Most of like when what's his name? Younger Timi is walking out of the after killing that man and he's walking out of the burnt house. We've seen those scenes before, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's a good thing. They recreated those scenes good. You can tell it's kind of a homage to those kind of really nicely shot scenes, and I really loved it. I loved how it felt, the feeling. I really enjoyed watching that. Even the aesthetic lent itself to the way the characters looked, and I'm talking about Genoveva and Chimezie Imo. They looked so good together. They look so good. They fit so well in the in this world. I don't know where exactly this film is set, but the world that it's set in just looks really nice. I really like the film. I like the aesthetic of the film. Like there isn't one particular thing I can say that I hate about it. It's for me, it felt like watching a film, and that's good. I feel like it should be in the cinemas, and that's the thing that streaming is doing to us. This film was made for the cinema. It has a very cinematic feel to it. Somebody mentioned Scorsese. Like this is what Scorsese was talking about when he said, "What is cinema? What is not?" This is it. It feels very cinematic. I don't know why it's just on streaming platforms. I think they should take it to cinemas. I think that's all I have to say.
All right. Thanks, Indica. Vanessa, are you back?
I'm gonna try. Okay, I'm gonna speak. I'm gonna speak through this, everyone, and open your ears. So I'm gonna start with the superfluous beauty in this. Genevieve Alme is a beautiful girl. Chimezie Umo is a beautiful man. Wale Ojo is very beautiful. Ashionye, who plays Genevieve Alme's mom, also gorgeous woman. And I'm just gonna save the best for last. Ademola Adedoyin. This is my Nollywood crush. I've been in love with this man for as long as I could have been in love with this man. And when I saw him on this with this specific haircut and the little stash, I was like, yeah, this was meant for me. I would have preferred to see him be on screen for the entirety of the film, play older Timi Johnson, age him up a bit. No shade to Wale. I would genuinely have I want more for Ademola Adedoyin in Nollywood, and this could have been that role for him because the first half of the film where he was Timi Johnson, he was acting his butt off. He gave one of the strongest performances in this film, period, and I would have enjoyed to see that performance carry throughout the rest of the film. Um, Speaking about Performances. Chimezemo is another one that Nollywood needs to take more seriously. I don't need to see Chimezemo play a young boy anymore. That's a grown man. Let him play a grown man. He can do it. He has the acting chops to back it up. Give it to him. He deserves. It was a joy watching the best performance. Everyone, I can't believe I was talking about beauty. The work was just a beautiful woman. Always.
Oh, about taking lights. All right. Sorry, Vanessa. I've lost you again. All right.
Said,
Ainkon, do you want to tell us?
I think Vanessa thinks she's still talking. Vanessa. Oh, now she's crying. Okay. Yes. So what I thought this movie was as everybody has already said, well directed. The aesthetics was there. They had a vision and a look that they were going for, and they went for it and they did it. I was slightly reminded of the beginning version of it, the beginning story of it. The start. I was slightly reminded of like Life of Pi, and I don't know if do you know this movie called The Big Fish with Ewan McGregor in it. I love The Big Fish. It's a it's in between reality and fantasy sort of type of story, right? And I do think that a lot of the performances were good. Yes, Ikwe Edo, I think that's how they say her name. Um, Beautiful woman. So almost every single woman is. Even Genevieve, beautiful woman. Just beautiful. Even I was like, yes, I remember when I was in love with you, Equator, and I had to realize that no, I never met this woman in my entire life. Um, so those were good shots, and it was well directed, and the story does have some sort of connection, and I like the fact that it has to deal with human, um, what's it called? Human relationships and just forming relationships with people. It's a story that stays between what's it called? A feel good movie? Yeah, it's basically kind of like a feel good movie as kind of slice of life. Fantasy I call it fantastic slice of life because it's slightly fantastic. It is slightly fantastic. But I think they did it well. I think it was competent. I think that people watching it will not necessarily be that pissed off with the movie. And I did I see him dying from a mile away? Yeah, sure. But I also think that the death in the movie was definitely what's it called? It was set up and it seemed earned, except for the death of the women. But we understand why that happened. So no, deaths that don't come out of nowhere. Uh, Even the fact that the lungs was set up from the beginning. Um, you didn't realize it was set up from the beginning until later. Uh, and I thought that was a good thing. The reason I love the way they used the reason. It wasn't something that just pop up. They still remember it. There's sometimes in these big movies that we've noticed that they said something and like down the line in the script or in the production of the movie, it gets lost because they want to do other things and they forget about it. But this movie does not necessarily forget about many things of it. And yeah, it's highly stylized, highly it was entertaining, it was nice. I have issues, but it's a type of movie that I have maybe not issues, like at least notes on like, oh, why was that shot that way? Why was this done? What is it trying to say? Type of thing. I don't necessarily have that much problem with the filmmaking itself or the scripting itself as much. I don't really necessarily have that much of a problem. So it's a competent movie. Um, Beautiful actors. They did their job competently. It was nice. It was good. Did I finish my time?
You have
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Well, that means I finished my time. I don't think 30 seconds. Bye.
All right, thanks, Anika. Vanessa, are you?
I'm
Is that time
gonna
lucky?
try again. I'm on a train. But you guys heard what I said about like beautiful people and how Ecuador is like the most beautiful person in the world.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on from beautiful people to the acting. Like I said, Ademola Adedoyin was really great in this. I would have rather him the entirety of the film instead of Wale Ojo. Love Wale Ojo, but I would have rather Ademola. Also, Chimezie Imo gave a really good performance. I want to see more life movies from Nollywood for him. They should stop giving him small picking roles to act. That man is a good man. Treat him as such. The coloring, like a lot of people have said, was really amazing in this. I really liked how the film looked. Everyone has used the word aesthetics, and that's just what it is. It's one of those films where film Twitter will just get like grab stills from it and just post it and be like, oh, aesthetics. Like, that's the kind of film this was. And we deserve to have those kind of films in Nollywood. We deserve to have Nollywood films that we can have stills of and we can say, yeah, aesthetically pleasing. Um, Speaking about aesthetically pleasing, the fashion in this was great. I'm really glad to see Daniel Obasi take more costume design roles for Nollywood. He has a really great eye, and his eye was very evident in this. This isn't the first film he's done costuming for. I think this is his third, and I'm really pleased for him. What else was really good in this? Oh yeah, there's a sequence of words in this film that's probably my favorite sequence of words was when Wale Ojo was trying to teach, was when Mr. Timi was trying to teach Elijah how to drive, and he says, Mierda, Olodo, Ode. And I just really liked that sequence of words in Wale Ojo's voice. Um, what else did I like? What else did I like? What else did I like? Oh, not necessarily that I really liked the music. I feel like everyone said they liked the music choice, but not how it was used. I agree with that. But also, I just want to give Dinachi a huge standout. Like, her song Rise has been used like 600 times and counted in Hollywood, and she deserves. If no one is going to listen to her music, at least Nollywood will make sure you can listen to her music in their films. And I'm quite pleased for Dinachi. Also, really glad to hear Bez in a film. His music lends itself to cinema, and more of Nollywood should use his music for their films. What else did I really like in this? Um,
I
it was
think
nice to see.
it's probably up.
My
Yes.
time, you know what? It's okay. I've come back. I've come back like 3 times. You guys deserve to cut me off at this point.
All right. Thanks, Vanessa, on your third attempt. I think it is Damola. Damola?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. My phone was in my pocket. Hi guys.
All right. Hi,
So
welcome.
yeah, good film. Everybody has kind of said what I have to say, to be honest. So it would just be repetition at this point. But I think one of the things that hasn't been said was just like the film. What I liked about the film was that it intrigued me from the start. So just seeing, I mean, like having seen the trailer and seeing that it was kind of a period piece and stuff, and then them starting off with the year 2060 and kind of seeing the futuristic look that they had put in there. I was kind of like, oh, okay. I was expecting something else, but this is interesting, and that intrigued me. I was like, okay, I want to know more. Um, I think everyone's kind of talked about the cinematography, the coloring. Yeah, it looks good. I think it looks great, especially in parts. There's a lot of visual storytelling, with just like looks and movement and stuff, which is great. Um, Demola Adedoyin's eyes, very, very. He does it. He did quite a bit of acting with his eyes, and I was actually very impressed. Particularly like when he was after he had killed Baby Fire and he was, drunk or whatever, trying to kill himself, the determination in his eyes was really there. I could see, and then, from determination to confusion and then frustration, all without saying a word, it just really rang true. Great performances all around, to be honest. The chemistry between Chimezemo and Genevieve, great. I like that they were kind of almost two sides of a coin. So she was kind of cheeky, like the fact that she was being wooed by a pastor. She didn't have to be somebody who was also kind of innocent and stuff. She she was a bit more vivacious and just a bit more of an extrovert, and I feel like that balanced out quite well between the two of them. Um, yeah, I mean, good music as well, good music choices, not overwhelming in a lot of places, as has been said already. I also really like the circular structure of the story, the way we kind of start out, you know, talking about the lungs, and then we finish on, sort of the same. And the opening image and closing image are kind of the same, and I kind of like that. And I just like that it's about the lungs right at the beginning, and it's about the lungs right at the end. So all of that, those are things I kind of liked. Yield the rest of my time. Thanks.
All right, no, thanks, Damola. Olana, did you want to? Oh, sorry, Cynthia. We'll come back to you. Let's just see.
Oh no, I was going to say Alana is back. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, and she's gone. And she's gone. All right, Cynthia, was there something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say something, but Oyinka has brought it up. So, and Damola just said it. The long setup. I won't lie. At the beginning, when they showed the guy under the water and they were showing, and they said he stayed under the water for 59 minutes. It was at the back of my head throughout the movie, and I was like, so why are you telling me this? Because they kept referencing it was a soldier for some parts of the movie and they didn't show it, but the part that they showed was the lung. So when they got to the last part and it was about him needing a lung transplantation and him having super lungs, I was like, okay, I think I will take it. Another thing they kind of did was it could speak different languages, and it was also at the back of my mind. So I think it was in the car scene. It changed. It was in the car scene. It displayed it could speak different language when it was insulting the guy. And to be honest, if they had removed it, it would have done nothing, or it wouldn't have like changed a lot of things in the film. But because they introduced it could speak different language, it was at the back of my mind, like when are they going to like use this stuff and everything. And I guess they used it, so is an applause. Then the asthmatic introduction, when Elijah came in and he was gasping for breath and he brought out an inhaler, I was like, this is an over exaggerated asthmatic scene, and I'm going to like question why is an asthmatic person. Are you sure this guy does not have something more? So yeah, when they brought he had chronic lung disorder or disease, I was like, okay, I'm going to take it. But yeah, so I guess that's what I wanted to say. Like they set up some things that they went back to use that kind of shut me up. So yeah, that's what I was going to add.
All right, Mrs. C, do you want to tell us the things you liked about, or do you want to cough?
I would rather not cough. So what did I like about it? The beautiful people that have been mentioned. I think Echo really looked the part. There was something so classic about her beauty, and it was also the styling, the hair, the makeup, everything really worked for Echo's character. I really liked that. I think someone has mentioned AA, he's hit or miss. Because I remember him in Fine Wine, really not good. But yeah, I did really enjoy him as what's his character's name, as Timi. I do wish they had stayed on with him as much as I love Wale Ojo. Genoveva, I'm really happy Genoveva got cast in a more age-appropriate role. And there was still some whininess, but I'm glad we didn't have her as like a teenager, or I don't know. She looked younger here than she did when she was cast in Wilmer Academy, and I think it was just because she was cast in an age-appropriate way, and now you can see that Genoveva looks kind of young for her age. But when you put her in secondary school, it looks weird. But yeah, I really appreciated that, and I thought her hair was beautiful. She has lovely hair. I like the premise of it. I like I can see the story that was in there, and I like the idea of, a jaded old man that, gets to see life again, right? Or get a new lease on life when he has to spend time with this younger person. There's that idea in there, which I liked, and I thought, would have been nice to explore.
What else did I like? Funny enough, I liked seeing the ironing of the newspapers. I thought that was just a nice touch because it's such an old thing that's not really, it's not done anymore. And it gave the film age, which I thought was nice. Again, with the confusing timelines, and I think which is why some things threw me, but it's weird to put it as a good and it's weird to say because I feel like they did age the film nicely, but then some things threw me because I thought we were in the 90s when we were in 2003. But yeah, and somehow I liked the way it looked. Somehow I liked the way it looked. It did have a certain aesthetic that it was sticking to, and I liked that. Oh, I like Chimezie Imo. I think he's a good actor. I wish they would cast him in more stuff, and I wish they would cast him more as just a grown young man.
Thanks. Jenna, I'm gonna. All right. Okay. For me, just double check. For me, okay. So things I like. Let me go open my notes. I thought there were really some nice shots of the landscape that I thought was beautiful. One of the ones that's the standout for me, like the most beautiful shot of the whole film for me is during the kiss, when the I think there were clothes hanging in the background between and Chimezie and Genevieve's characters. It's the wind blowing against the fabric. I'm guessing the colors of the fabrics being at the background, and they were just popping. I thought that was like, yeah, that's somebody's making film. And I think this film generally passed my walking across, is this a film? It passed the is this a film test, which sometimes our films don't tend to pass. People have talked about the song thing. I feel exactly the same way in terms of, but maybe not particularly how it was used, but the actual song. I'm definitely going to be listening to that post when it comes out, if it's out. I also thought the voiceover performance I thought was appropriate. Talk about the narration a little later, but I thought the voiceover performance it had I thought it was well done. I felt like it was a character in the movie, as opposed to something that feels sometimes a little more lazily tacked on when we do it in Nollywood. So that's for the voiceover performance more than anything. All right, so we're going to start in the bad, but you have your hands up.
Oh yes, I don't know if this is a place to say it, but someone mentioned how they didn't reference the fact that, or like they didn't understand why they brought up the fact that he was a soldier. I think they did when he was about to go do something, and then they reminded him that he was no longer a soldier, and then his ability to use the guns and how he dealt with BB fire. I think that was why they brought that fact up. But yeah.
Mr. C, Pear wants to join. She's asking you guys in the comments.
I don't see any requests. Okay, don't worry. I think we'll sort that out in a bit. Mrs. C is going to be on it. All right. I'm just going to read some comments that have come through. Vanessa says, not Mrs. C seeing the intention in a Nollywood film at the end of the year of our queen, Beyonce. All right. Early says, I agree with Vanessa on the fact that I would have loved if Demola played older to me as well. If they aged him up with some makeup, I feel he would still have delivered. No shade to Wale Ojo, though. Mui says, man, it's such a beautiful film to look at. The pacing of the film and the performances were great. Also, actually, all right. Oh, here we go. I see them. Yeah. All right. So, Pearl, do you want to tell us some of the things? Pearl, do you want to tell us some of the things you like about this film?
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. When it was connecting, the sound went off for a second. Okay. Hi. Sorry, I came late. Oh yeah. From what I've heard, everyone is in agreement on the fact that this was a really beautiful movie, and I agree. It was very like aesthetically pleasing, beautiful colors, stunning landscapes. Some of the sets, like when we went to Anna's family home, I was like, that is such a beautiful house. I wanted to live there. So there were just so many things. A lot of the acting was really good. I liked some of the soundtracks, not all, but especially like the sort of choral music, like church. And then I liked that the fact that this movie was set in Ibadan. You know, like just anything that is not Lagos is for me. So I liked that, and I think they did a good job with the love story. I had issues with it, but for the most part, I think they were able to shoot it so that I accepted what it was. You know, just the falling in love. Sometimes very often we don't see the journey. So with these people, I think to an extent we did see the journey, even if again ultimately it didn't work for me. And maybe when we get to the bad, I can talk a bit about that. So I thought a lot of the casting was good. I really liked Demola Adedoyin and Sambasa. I think he has been typecast in that kind of role. And then I like to see this Genoveva. I've never seen her before, so I liked seeing her and her performance. Um, Bimbo Manuel, well, he's always great. Tinamba, I think this was different from her usual roles. I thought she was great also, but Eku, I don't typically like Eku. There was acting. She's one of the people that I'm like, oh, she's a star. She's not an actor, but I thought she was completely perfect and adequate for this role. And let me see. There was really good attention to detail. For instance, when after the fire, and then that spot on the ground that was scorched, I really liked that. There were so many things. There was one part where we saw the coat of arms in the background, and it was sort of like this skeleton, and it looked very aged. And, just nice stuff like that. I think it hit a lot of like emotional beats, because that's something I typically complain about, that we miss emotional moments for, emotional beats. And I think this movie really went there, and I've heard a lot of people say they cried and stuff like that. So there were parts that were really gut-wrenching, so there's that. I thought the first act of this movie had a really good like grip on the suspense and dramatic tension, not so much the rest of it. But I think I'll just stop here with the things that I liked. Thank you for letting me come on.
Thanks, Pearl. And film guy, before we get to the bad. Film guy? Okay. Cynthia, do you want to start us? Let's pivot into the bad.
Wait, sorry. But people hands are up now. Or you can't, mother.
I thought you said you have to leave in like you.
Yeah, I have to leave, but they can talk. Don't worry, when they talk, I will say my bad and I will leave. It's fine.
We also already said the goods, to be honest. We just yeah. I don't want us to.
Okay. Let me say my bad and go. Unlike you people, I actually dislike the picture quality of this movie. I felt it was too. I felt it was too beautiful. At some point, I felt it was too blue. I felt it was too artificial. I felt it started looking like they put a glow face TikTok filter in the movie. I just felt it was too blue and beautiful. Okay, and it became artificial at some point. So even though like I could see the beautiful pictures and everything, it got to a point I really, really disliked the picture quality because it felt really artificial. It felt like a TikTok glow face filter. And it was mostly done on the surroundings. So you could see that the greens are really green. The water is kind of shining, but you get to the face of the people and they are like face. So I don't know, but did not I just did not enjoy the picture quality as much. It got to a point I was like, this is too artificial. This looks like a glow face TikTok filter, and yeah, that is it. Another thing that kind of bothered me was the timeline. It's not like it bothered me, it's just like we're jumping in time, and we had 1953, we had 1960, we had 8 years later, and the narration, this was like 4 minutes into the movie, and the narration, this character is telling me Independence Day. And in my mind, I thought we're already in 1968, and you're saying Independence Day, pray for Princess Alexandra. So that part, 4 minutes into the movie, I was already like taken aback. I had to rewind to be certain I followed the timeline jump. Okay, and it was really 1968, and they were talking about Independence Day, praying for Princess Alexandra or something. And we also had the timeline jump 35 years later, 2003. And I don't know how to say it. Like there were so many, like they were giving us timelines, giving us historical points, and it doesn't even look like they were following the timelines in the movie. So we got to introduce Elijah's character 35 years later. So I'm assuming 1968 plus 35, 2003. It spent 9 to a year there, but I went back to 2060, and I was certain that Timi died in 2003 in June, because I remember seeing the engraving in his grave. So it wasn't just about everything looking the same. It was also the time they were giving me and pinpointing some historical points, and it wasn't just fitting with the whole timeline in the movie. Talking about 2060, I didn't like the futuristic look of 2060 at all. I felt like to be very honest, I felt like 2060, the sky is going to look duller because we have been crying about climate change. So I don't know why everything looked like an animation with holograms and everything. I dislike the look of 2060. Then just to be very fast, the whole movie in terms of writing and story, I actually did not like it. So I did not like any of the relationship in this movie because I felt like they were not fully explored. So let's talk about the romantic relationship a little bit. So we had this romantic relationship. To be very honest, I also do not like the meet cute. Yes, I don't like this movie. I do not like the meet cute. At some point, when the character was sharing the pamphlets and they gave to her and everything, I felt it was a little bit of workplace harassment, but that is that. But for the romance, they introduced Elijah and Anna, and they were doing their romance, and I guess the acting there was good, but this babe character was not someone that was into church. But later on, we saw her fighting for the church. The point where they left the romance for us, she was someone that could be selfish, that if they were going to demolish the church, she wouldn't care and she would want them to demolish the church so that she can have the guy. But they did not like get to that romantic point where they have shown us that she's someone that could fight for love or fight for what a lover wants. So them showing a character as someone that now wants to fight with a lover just took me out. The father and son relationship, to be fair, it was only one scene. I felt they were already building the whole father and son relationship. We got to him, oh, he has called my name. This is the first time he's calling my name Elijah and all this kind of stuff. And later we are jumping and jumping and jumping, and we're like, he's my son, he's my father, I'm going to adopt him. I just felt like it was really rushed that I didn't get to see that establishment of they are now father and son. Okay, yes, they had the whole British monument stuff, which was also odd because the waiter wanted to be a pastor. If the church was going to be a monument, it's going to be like a museum. So why is it going to pastor the church anyways? But that is that. But okay, so yeah, I'm going to wrap up now. But the father and son relationship was not really well established for him to be doing all that. Same with the God relationship. To be very honest, we didn't even see him. We didn't even see the start of the relationship. We just saw him heading a church. We didn't see any reason why he's being called into the ministry. And a lot of the things that kind of throw back was him being a soldier that they didn't show. Okay, but it became very important in some things. So his relationship with God, we didn't see the start. We just saw him being a minister. We didn't see why he got into his relationship with God. We didn't see, yes, they kind of show this is why he left this relationship. But when he was coming back to his relationship with God, we also did not see it. We got a scene where he said, for God's sake or something. And this Elijah's character is happy. You said God twice. You said God twice. What is that supposed to mean? It doesn't mean he now believes in God, because an atheist could be having sex and they'll say, oh my God. Does that mean they not believe in God? So establishing that relationship with God was missing. Okay, so the whole coming back into God and now being in God and now doing things okay, because God told him to give his lung was just off. To be fair, I was expecting to see him. Okay, just one thing. Sorry. I'm sorry. To be fair, in that church scene where he went to when he went to be like, God has shown me this and that, I want to say something that every biblical person took decision by themselves at some point. Okay, so even when Jesus Christ had to like die for the sins, it was reluctant. We saw him saying, Jesus, God, please take this cup away from him. We saw him make the decision, okay, I am not going to die for the sins of the people. For this situation, father and son, something which I also don't believe that if the Pope has an adopted son, is going to sacrifice his lung. But for this of father and son relationship, we just saw him going to the church and God took his life. And they're rushing him to we saw paramedic rushing him, and now he has donated his lung. We didn't see a God instruction. We didn't see him thinking about the decision, running away from the decision. We didn't see him making the decision or coming upon that realization. So yeah, before I run, I was just gonna say I just like yeah, no, I'm gonna give a summary now because I'm going out. I just want to say that even though the
Thank
picture
you.
quality was good, I got tired of it, and a lot of times all the relationship was not fully explored. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Cynthia. All right, Cynthia is running off, so she did her bad and her summary. Please, please, your 5 minutes. Please stick to it. All right, thanks, Cynthia. I appreciate coming on. All right, Elizabeth, do you want to tell us?
Yeah. So similarly to what what I did on the last call, so what I like here is almost the same thing I didn't like, right? As much as I liked stylized movie, like I could figure out they were going for something stylized here, but something was off, and I just couldn't place my fingers on it. Like something feels off, and I think it's in the cohesion of intention, costume, coloring with the entire texture of the film. I think Cynthia has mentioned it about saying that it looked yeah. I figured eventually that it's because the camera just looked too crispy and bright. There was something overly bright. So you're shifting from the form of stylized in the manner of, let's say, Amelie or Drive or Pan Labyrinth, and you're moving into something like Bridgerton. And when I said I had this Bridgerton feel to it, it wasn't in a positive way because I feel like for films, it has to be fit for purpose. The kind of story you're trying to tell. So this is in one of those situations where all things did not work together for good, unfortunately. Some of the things worked against it. So I, as much as I can see that this is a stylized film, it's put in that manner. And sometimes the editing didn't help because like that hospital scene where everything was white and blue and pink and bright. Now I think the problem is in the brightness, and because it's bright, my brain expects it to have some form of the walls, the painting, and everything should, rather than being this bright, I would assume that it should look lived in, right? The hospital should look used. Again, if it's not my place telling anybody how to do their film, but this is how it comes to me when you're trying to make a stylized film. So if the lighting or the coloring was different in such a way where the overly bright whites and then the blue from the side bed and then the patient's dress and then the pink from the nurses are not just jumping at me like like we're in Bridgerton, right? It would have looked maybe a little bit better. Again, the entire texture of the film would have maybe led credence to its overall style, overarching style, because this film is stylized, even in the way it's directed and edited, and even the comedy parts in the comic parts, which again I think sometimes the editing just doesn't work for it. But that's how I felt. So as I was watching it, I felt this film was artificial, right? Stylized film in the first place are not supposed to look natural, but this now has moved from stylized into it being artificial. So that's it about the entire thing for me. I'm not asking it for them to even age age Timi's house or anything. It could even still look crisp, but it just felt so much like a set. Something was going on. Anyway, that's it about the question of the aesthetic. And again, so all of that didn't help with the story for me. Right. As much as I understood the idea they were going for, I mean, this film is supposed to be something along the along the side of, second chances. You have this second chance thing going on. You have this metaphor for Christ himself. There are so many things, right, that could have been happening here, right, that could have been happening in this film because of this sort of idea that they were going for, but nothing was sealed in the in the deal. Let me put it that way. Like Cynthia mentioned, so many things that didn't feel like it was put together. It seemed like a lot was bungled from trying to move from point A to the other. So you're not so many. Okay, let's put, for example, Anna's dad. Right, we saw him at the beginning. We saw him at the church. He looked at this man. He walked away. Maybe scenes were cut out. Maybe something happened. But seeing him again and finding out he was the one who had been paying, and then he wants to. It's just the way we got to the church conflict, right? It almost came out of nowhere. Like they've already settled on him wanting to pastor a church and all of that. It's just that this our big bad wolf, who was Anna's dad, being the bad guy, we've seen him, we saw a glimpse. But we're gonna bungle, we're gonna break this down, you have to fix it by yourself thing just came from nowhere. And we didn't get to, now talking thematically, we didn't get to see how Timi's character sacrificing himself for a new son, but this new son was found, is sort of a way to atone for, his own, taking a life as a revenge. There are so many things, and then a chance for him to come back to God. It just doesn't feel like that. He called God's name. I know I will bounce, don't worry. You probably will not see me until, time to do summary, but I'll maybe finish then. I have to bounce too. But the point is, something just feels off here. It feels artificial and superficial. And the music was not fit for purpose. It was manipulative, right?
All right. No, thanks, Elizabeth. I appreciate. Iwere, do you want to give us the things you didn't like? Iwere, are you there? Okay. Richana, do you want to tell us the things you didn't like?
Okay, I think I'm going to echo Elizabeth to some degree, because when I talk about things I didn't like, it's going to seem to contradict the things I said I did like. Like, I was talking about how well directed this movie was in terms of, the blocking, the staging, the mise-en-scene in general. But in terms of directing the actors, it didn't really do it for me. I didn't like Wale Ojo's performance very much, not because he didn't act well, but because I feel that his performance was in a different key from the rest of the movie. Like, he's playing this role and he's playing it very broad and very almost cartoonish, which is fitting for a film, which I said reminds me of something like a Pixar movie, or I think it was Elizabeth who referenced Life of Pi and Big Fish. But the rest of the movie couldn't really meet up to his performance, so it wasn't the same key as him due to no fault of his own. And I think for what the movie was trying to do, for the kind of semi-fantasy, magical realism feel it was going for, I think the movie itself looked too realist. I don't like to tell a filmmaker what they should have done, but I think that they probably should have gone for more wide lenses to give it a bit more of a distorted look that sort of puts it on the edge of reality and fantasy. Because it looked too realistic, and then Wale Ojo's out here playing this cartoon character, and it just didn't really work as well. I didn't like Chimezia's performance either. Again, not because he didn't act well, but because I think that role needed a bit more comic chops, and he seemed to be playing it very straight. I don't know. I think that role was supposed to be more comedic than it turned out to be. And then also, I previously complimented the fact that they did a good job in evoking the feel of southwestern Nigeria in the 1960s. But at the same time, a lot of the stuff didn't feel Nigerian to me. Like that Baby Fire character, when I looked at him, I just saw South Africa. And look, I mean, I've said before that I don't need a movie to be realistic as such. It doesn't really have to jibe with our own experienced reality. but something about it just took me out. Even, seeing these gangsters with Tommy guns in Nigeria in 1960s, again, it just took me out. Maybe I would have been able to accept it more if the style of the movie wasn't so realist. If it was more, if they had succeeded in making it more fantasy like, I could deal more with these things that didn't appeal realistic to me. But those sort of things kind of took me out. And then I think the story, I didn't really like the story. Well, the story itself is fine. I didn't like the screenplay. The way that the story was structured didn't really work for me. Like, who was it? I can't remember who already spoke about how the movie is sort of like a mirror, the way the last image mirrors the first image. That was interesting, and the way it all comes together at the end. Because up until that point, I was wondering, wait, why is this guy talking about giving this kid his lungs? I mean, he's an old man. Why are his lungs so precious? I mean, his lungs are probably worn out. And he was talking about his lungs as if they were so special. But it's only at the end when Elijah gets into the water that I remembered, oh, yes, Timi went into the water too when he was young, and he supposedly has really great lungs. Well, that was never mentioned again throughout the movie, and I completely forgot about it. And I don't think that was a good thing. I think that it should have, I think that maybe some of the stuff that was narrated, I mean, again, here's another contradiction. I might have previously said that this movie did a good job of showing, not telling. But a lot of stuff was told and not shown. Like the idea that this great relationship had grown up between this younger man, this older man. We didn't really see it. They did the whole yada 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 thing, where instead of us actually seeing the relationship grow, we're just being told in the narration. And I think it would have been better if that entire first act had been somewhere in the middle. If maybe the movie had started with Elijah going to work for this mean old man, and then in the middle, we get to see his origin. I think it would have given you a bit more dramatic stakes. Because dramatically, I felt it was flaccid. I mean, even the whole thing with them fighting for the church, it didn't really feel like a real conflict, and it was settled through a last minute Deus ex machina. And even and then as soon as that conflict is settled, we start the next conflict of Elijah supposedly dying. But again, there was no real dramatic stakes to that either, because the very first line in the movie is Elijah telling us that he's basically the oldest man in the world. So there was really never any doubt that this guy was going to survive. Maybe you might say that there was a question of how he would survive. But again, that felt flat because they didn't really give us the breadcrumbs leading up to that. They didn't talk about how this guy supposedly has these great lungs. So I don't think the story worked for me. It just didn't really have any real weight to it. And speaking of the narration, I think the narration went on way too long. It shouldn't have been there most of the time. Let me see. Okay, I'll stop there.
All right, thanks, Ichin. A lot of people, yeah, okay. No, I probably might do one myself, to be honest, with the narration, where it seems like you're both sides in it, but I understand. Vanessa, do you want to tell us?
I'm here. So the things I didn't like about this film, I feel like a lot of people have said a bunch of the stuff that I didn't like, but for a faith-based film, it definitely didn't do a good job at exploring the characters' relationships with God, especially if this was a film that was supposed to be like a second chance, come to Jesus moment for our main character, and it just felt really unearned because we didn't fully explore why he had a relationship with God in the first place. I mean, we kind of sort of know why he lost it, but it didn't actually explore his actually dealing with the fact that he lost faith in God. So when he had his second come to Jesus moment, it felt really unearned. And a lot of the film felt very superficial and unearned. And I think for me, it's a general problem that I have with Nollywood is the lack of commitment to dig deeper into why these characters are the way they are, because that's what truly makes them feel like people. Uchenna mentioned how Wale Ojo's portrayal of Timi felt cartoonish. It's not just his performance, which I agree is not his best, but it's also how that character was written. That character didn't feel like a person. The first half of that character felt like a human being, the one that Demola didn't play. That part, up until when Baby Fire was killed, I enjoyed the writing of this film. But like from then on, it just went into a completely downhill because that character became super cartoonish. there was no exploration into why he was the way he was, why he dealt with grief that way, what the grief did to him as a person. We saw him trying to kill himself in 1,000 different ways. Oh, explain how him trying to die affected his relationship with God, and him doing that moment of wondering, why am I not dying? What is it about me that's so special? Why am I here? Why is my family not here? Actually shows his character deal with those things. So that by the time we get to a point where he's willing to sacrifice himself, all the symbolism that you're trying to do feels earned. Um, a lot of the story felt staccato. A lot of it didn't flow very well, and maybe it's an editing problem. But like Elizabeth said as well, the the what's the word? The transition in with the first thing we were dealing with was him trying to get into his feelings with her, Anna coming into the house and then opening Mr. Timi up into, developing relationships with other people. And then all of a sudden we're thrown into this whole battle for a church, and it's like, huh? And yes, you might have given us like a 1 second scene of him walking past the church and seeing the man shaking the hand of somebody, but that could have been anyone. And then making that our big bad just didn't feel it. I don't know, maybe the editing had to do with it, but the storytelling felt very choppy. What else didn't I like? I guess I've inferred that I don't particularly love Wale. I don't love it either. Um, what else? What else? What else? I just I think that's what basically all of this is. Is that it just got really superficial, really artificial, and it is just a lack of commitment into doing the work of digging really deep into what makes people people and how that affects their relationships with others. Especially on a film where it's building relationships with people that's supposed to help the character arc. If you cannot actually dig into why these relationships are important and how they affect human beings, then the character arc is unearned. And that's how this entire film felt.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Vanessa. I think I got some of that. No. Yeah, but like more issues with cohesion. I'm just going to read some of the comments that. No, I heard you. Just you cut out a couple of times, but you were mostly audible. Abasede says establishing any emotions among character was very off, to be honest, and it did not feel Nigerian at all. Lol, gangsters with bikes in the 1960s. Are you kidding me? Um, yeah, Vanessa, could you go mute? It looks like you're mute, but okay. All right. After Vanessa, we have Induka. Induka, you want to give us the things that did not work for you in Breath of Fire? Induka, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the things that did not work for me, I know that I gave you glowing reviews earlier on. I did not like the narration. I think it was a bit show and tell. I feel like it would have been a way better film without the narration. I think because it was like a collage of several scenes, like memorable scenes that the filmmakers wanted to recreate, there's a problem with tone. Because, for example, you have this action sequence where the guy fire and the guy is walking out of the burning fire. And then you have another sequence where he's throwing plates at the wall and it's supposed to be comedic. I'm like, the tone is a bit all over the place because I feel like they wanted to capture some memorable scenes they've seen in film. They unironically shot a dead woman montage that TikTok has parodied all over the place. They shot it. Ecuador was literally under a bed sheet, smiling into the camera. They shot that. It was so funny when I watched it. I didn't expect that. Like, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing, but I'm like, in 2023, it's unironic to see them shooting this. I feel like it was just that, and I could never really get into the actual story of it itself because I was being taken apart by, oh my god, they shot this, like the whole asthma thing. thank God they say it wasn't asthma at the end. It felt like when the film about the nerdy virgin that cannot talk to a girl because he has asthma, like, and that's a comedic trope. So putting it in here, the tone was all over the place for that. Yeah, I think that's mostly what I did not like about it. I could not really get the story. Oh, I did not like that what saved the house that they wanted to, what do you call it? They wanted to knock down was a something from the British High Commission. I'm like, why? It seemed a bit colonial, a bit out of place and out of time for whatever time period it is. So I don't know the time period when things are happening because sometimes they'll say it's 1953, then they'll say 8 years later. Why not just add 8 to 1953 and tell us it's 1960 something? What of those that don't know maths like me? Yes, I didn't like that. I didn't think they got the time period correctly. Sometimes just kept pulling me away. Sometimes, especially with, let's say, the way the house was never shot. We never saw the house itself, so that was nice because I kept saying, okay, what's the house looking at and what is it exactly? But I never saw that. Oh, what I had a big issue was Sam Dede. Whenever Sam Dede spoke in his native dialect, the subtitle will say speaks in native Nigerian language. I'm like, it's a Nigerian film. Tell us the language and translate it so that we know what he's saying. I could never place where this thing was happening. I don't think it was Ibadan because it said Midwestern Nigeria. So where in Midwestern Nigeria is this happening? And there's a lot of dialects and languages spoken in Midwestern Nigeria, for example, plenty. So where exactly is this happening? I could never pinpoint. So yeah, those are the stuff I wanted to say.
All right, no, thanks, Indika. Ainkan, do you want to tell us some of the things you like?
Yes, so some of the things I didn't really gel with as much. As Monica said, I was watching the movie and I was like, there's one movie that everybody knows I said nobody should watch, and this has an element of it. Where I thought we had what do you mean the British High Commissioner still owns the land? Like what are you talking about? Is this real? I had to pause and be like, is this still real? Do the British still own land in Nigeria by after colonialism? After colonialism, I'm like, what? No, that should not have happened. But whatever, it feels very white man savvy, but okay. Like you already said it belonged to the local government of Nigeria. Just, get a local government or a government person to come and help. This is already a fantastical movie. One other thing is like, yes, I do agree with people in the certain way of like some things were not really connecting in kind of obvious ways that will make it easier for the audience to like accept it. Not of your audience members like me, I'm just like, whatever. You're trying to tell me something, I don't really care. What? Because, and one other thing that nobody has brought up is everybody's talking about timeline. I do not care really as much about timeline as much. But I do think that the aesthetics that they were using does not gel with the time that they're saying. Right? It's 1968, right? First of all, as Cynthia pointed out, why is Princess Alexandra in 1968? I think they should have just moved that a little bit above. That was just a tiny mistake, whatever. Why is she dressed like 1950s? Why is she dressed like a 1950s woman? That's like 10 years. Like, it's your time period is closer to the 70s. Kind of change that a little bit out. But that doesn't really matter because it was out of sync, and the clothing were beautiful, and I wanted a lot of the dresses that they had. So there were some things that just didn't feel. Some of the guns they were using, some of the props, it feels like a place a little bit out of time. But I think during the time of the main story, I did not necessarily care about the time. I just knew that it was 35 years after 1965, 90 something. I don't really care. that became important to me because of that old white man coming to bring the something. I was like, we are family after like colonialism. What are you talking about? Yes, they should have done this thing where like we should have seen a lot more story focused of the old man, Wale Ojo's character, what's his name? Timi's relationship with God, and how that relationship with God is brought through by Elijah. And there's something about it that feels like it's taking a lot of different stories in the Bible and kind of copying a little bit from that, because I'm the oldest man to ever live thing is Methuselah. Am I saying that name right? Methuselah, yes. Because technically Methuselah lived for a very long time. If you could do the calculation in the Bible, like did he live to see Jesus born? I think he did. No, he didn't. If you did the calculation, but like makes that's Methuselah. There is a thing that is kind of like an allegory to some sort of connection to like, okay, Jesus sacrificing himself. It's there. And I feel like it's a little bit of the reason why it kind of still looks realistic. It's kind of like between a little bit more going to fantasy. And I feel like that a little bit more going to fantasy, they should have more fully explored it, because this thing is already fantastic. When you start having somebody staying underwater for more than an hour, doing all this majestical thing, you can truly move. And like, those are the things I wish they had done a little bit more, a little bit better. It does look very crisp, and I do think that the location manager did a great work in choosing the locations, and the framing of the locations made it like look very beautiful. But like they should have made a more connection about that God thing, since it's a faith-based movie. But I think more than a faith-based movie, this is just a feel-good, like really, really up there, saccharine movie. It's saccharine. And I do have some issues, not because of the secret, but I don't dislike the security. I just feel like they should have connected the story a little bit more to God and why it should be called a faith-based movie. Like you're not really that much of a faith-based movie. God doesn't factor in as much. He's more of a backdrop in the story. Okay. I'm done.
All right, thanks, Inka. All right, okay. Some feedback has been coming through. I will read them in a bit, but just a couple. Oli says, "God bless you." There was such a huge disconnect for me in the establishment of emotional relationships. Everything felt forced or artificial. When he says the timeline was very confusing. Okay, where are you back? Lost you for a bit. If not, if Aware isn't here, okay.
Oh yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right.
Mic check.
Yes. Tell us the things you didn't like about Breath of Life. Oh, she's gone. All right. Spaces, man. Spaces today is they're giving us a send off. Quite the send off. All right. Where if you're back and if you can hear and if you can speak, please go ahead.
I think I can now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yes. So I think there's one thing I didn't like. I didn't see a lot of conviction from the characters. So with Reverend Timi, he could have been anything. Why did he, after all he has gone through, they set him up as this very exceptional person. Why is he a pastor? And what was the conviction? Like, why? I didn't get it. For Timi, he had finished his NYSC. He's come back to church. You're an orphan, and then your life goal is to set up a church. Why? And then you go up to be someone's house manager, and you see that the salary pays really well. But from Genevieve's conversation with Mr. Timi later, I hear that his salary can't even buy him a new bicycle. Maybe because they have like different upbringing, like what is good and what is manageable might be different. But then I didn't get a lot of conviction. Can you still hear me? Good.
Yes.
We can hear
Thank
you.
you. So I didn't get like a lot of conviction from those characters. Another thing I really didn't get proper conviction about was like, and it's something I'm particular about, was the conversation about like premarital sex. You could see Reverend Timmy trying to bring that up when they had that conversation in the car. Like, why do you not want to have sex with this girl? Is it because the Bible says that it's bad? If it's a faith-based movie, I would have loved them to address giving him a conviction other than God saying it's bad or something. Like, it just didn't make a lot. Like, a lot of the I didn't see a lot of reasons behind why Chimezie Emo did what he did. Oh, sorry, Elijah did what he did. Yeah, and I know we spoke about the timing. I just found it very hard and difficult to remember where we were or what time it was at each point of the movie. And that also, it didn't help because I couldn't understand the age of the characters that I was dealing with. How old is Reverend Timmy? Like, they said that he has been trying to kill himself for years. If I could understand that from the movie, I would have loved to see him kill himself over the years. How many years did he try to kill himself for? Like, I didn't understand that. Like, the timeline didn't help me understand like the age bit of the movie. Yeah, and I don't know if I like how they handled grief because everybody expected a lot from this man that had given them a lot already. The conversation Genevieve had with him about him not trying to save Timmy and him having so much money. She could have had that same conversation with her father. I didn't understand why they expected so much from him. Maybe it's because like we didn't see a lot of the like relationship develop and everything. Some part of it went from like 0 to 100 real quick. Yeah, so I think maybe that didn't help. I didn't understand why the church was so important that it had to be saved. If he's so keen on starting a church, he already had 5 million naira. He could have built up something else to start a church. And the resolution to that conflict, I didn't feel it was good enough. I didn't even understand what they were trying to say, to be honest. A lot of it felt really bright, angelic, and heavenly, and I guess that goes like with the colors. I guess for some scenes it could have worked, it could have like been really good, but then for other scenes, I just felt that it took something away from the emotion they were trying to portray at that point in time. Let me check my note. Yes, and I think the last bit was that we spoke about how they came back to some of the things that they set up. I didn't get why like he was exaggerated to be such a very like exceptional person if it wasn't really like important to the story. Like most of the things, like him being able to speak languages and all of those things, good. But then I really don't know how important it was or how well he carried the story. Or yeah, I think that's one of the things I didn't like. But yeah.
All right. No, thanks, Aweri. Damola, do you want to tell us some of the things that went with you?
Hi guys. So things that I don't like. So I mean, everybody has again. I think we're all kind of saying a lot of the same stuff, and it's hard for me to kind of go over those again. But I talked about like what I. So the first thing I'll say I didn't like was all the hard work that I think was kind of put into this in terms of the performances and the set and everything. I feel like that was squandered in the editing. The editing did not do this film any favors. Didn't linger where it was supposed to, didn't cut fast enough where it was supposed to in some crucial points. I mean, I'm not going to say it was terrible all the way through or anything like that. You know, editing isn't easy like any other skills, but it just like there were some bits that just kind of, kept pulling me out of the story because, one of the scenes actually is actually the scene um, where Jimmy kills, what's his name? Baby Fire. So like when he points the rifle at him, I'm thinking with editing it's so delicate, like it's a split second, literally, where we really should have just lingered and let him look down, the mouth of that barrel, so we understand just the finality of him looking at his own death, kind of thing. And they cut away too quickly to, and I like what they did in terms of going outside the house and just doing like the flash bang of the muzzle from outside. I think it's great, but it just cut too quickly. So and it kept on happening throughout the film with the editing. Another thing I didn't like was, I think we've all kind of talked about this so far, like the tone. There was a real and in talking about that, I'll kind of segue into like the cinematography or whatever. And I don't know if there's anyone that can kind of maybe clarify this for me, because I keep on asking, but I've never really gotten a straight answer. And the film did look inconsistent in point. So it was a really good looking film. And there were bits that really did look like, how Mr. C always says, it looked like a film. Does this look like a film test? There were some bits that did, and then there were some bits that just didn't. And I don't get the inconsistency. Like, unless it's different people kind of doing the color grading or whatever. I don't understand why the film looks inconsistent in places. It looks like it was, like the post was done by two different people. Um, so I didn't like that. What else didn't I like? I really, so even though I love the mirror image with the opening and closing scene, I think we've all said it, like, you kind of start us off with this man who is so extraordinary and clearly has this supernatural ability about him, but then you just kind of leave us in the lurch about that. Even with the whole, like, him trying to kill himself, I was even more intrigued when he was trying to kill himself and couldn't, and I thought, okay, this is not what I was expecting at all. I'm intrigued. I like this. Where are we going with this? And then we just go into this whole thing of him being just being a mean old man and stuff, and right at the end sacrifices his lungs, but we don't do anything throughout the middle with the whole like immortality thing. There's no reference to it. There's no gags. There's no nothing. Um, and, even with the people like, I think like Elizabeth and they mentioned the languages and stuff. We hear that he's he can speak all these languages, but we see nothing. And for me, that comes down to squandered moments, and I really hate those in films. I hate when you have like a real big opportunity to play with something and really do something beautiful with it, and then you just leave it. And I don't get why. There's also about like two or three different stories trying to be jam packed into this one story, which I don't like at all. Like, we start off with this man who's extraordinary and has lost his family, and we can just do the I have no heart. This person comes along and gives me a heart. That's one story on its own. There's the whole thing of the church, which comes in very late. And then there's just I don't know, like the God thing, right? Like coming back to God and stuff. And those are three different stories which can be told in three different movies, but they try to jam pack it into one. I don't like that. I thought that I'll segue into um oh God, I lost my train of thought. Just the fact that, like, oh God, I've completely lost my train of thought here.
All right.
Yeah, but I'll just leave it there. I'll just leave it there.
All right. No, thanks, Damala. All right. Pearl, do you want to tell us some of the things you didn't like? Pearl, are you there?
I'm sorry. I was looking for my phone. I'm always looking for my phone. Okay. Well, let me just first say that I'm feeling so validated by this space. Like, I was so scared of like my review, because I was like, the kinds of reactions I was seeing online, I was like, I'm going to be the only hater, and everyone is just going to say you're a hater. So I'm so glad. First of all, let me just say thank you to all the people who pointed out the colonialism. There were aspects of white savior, starting from even that whole photo shoot. The optics of this film from the beginning made me feel uncomfortable with Ekwedewo, with her white skinnedness and all of that. And, just those black people, they shot us in that portion the way white people shoot black people, and that was so unfortunate. And then when we now resolved that conflict using Her Majesty's government and essentially the mechanisms of colonialism, I was like, I'm very suspicious of this filmmaker's politics. Okay, let me leave that there. There were a lot of things. So, like, I did not like the narration. I didn't like. I was surprised, Mr. C, when you said you liked it, because I didn't. I didn't like the way the dialogue flowed. I didn't think it fit well with some of the scenes that were being shown on screen. For instance, they showed us Timi with his wife at the grave when they were talking about his mother. His parents died. The mother had died before, and then the father just died. And then the next line was them telling us he had just returned, and then his wife is stepping out of the car. And that stepping out of the car is really the first time we should have seen her. But we had already seen her at the grave by him, so there were little. This movie, the main problems are in the details, in my opinion. Like, on the surface, it looks really good. It looks like the story flows. It looks like everything works. But then I spent the entire Friday watching this movie, and I'm not even joking. I couldn't seem to get into it. I was in front of this TV the whole day, because I would watch a bit and then be so frustrated and go away and come back and watch a bit again, and then something will throw me out again, So I'm going to talk specifically about the character of Anna. I started out liking their love story a little bit, but then again, the details, right? Is he, first of all, when I can't remember what she said, and then he said, "Do not give to the things that destroyed men or destroyed kings or whatever." I was like, okay, so sexism, check. And then, sorry, cooking jollof rice. And then next thing, she tells him, that she doesn't do the God thing, and then his answer is he's going to marry her. So let's not even go into the faith aspect, because there was no conviction there. This guy just wanted a career path as a pastor or priest. That was it. He didn't have any calling or anything like that I could see. There was no just performance of spirituality throughout this movie. Everything that they talked about, like faith or whatever, was all very surface. So I think that they themselves did not respect that, and so why should I? And then for the girl, again, Anna, she was just a really terrible character in the end, and I don't know if I was supposed to like her or really dislike her. So that whole all the attributes she displayed were just so many flags, like I've never seen one character display in such a short span of time. From the entitlement to just the way she disregarded that relationship between Elijah and Timi, to the way she diminished like his grief. She was so disrespectful on so many levels. And in the end, of course, she said how she thought about their relationship, and that she didn't consider him an equal. So at the end of it, I was like, why do we still have a love story here? Like, I don't understand. This chick, she needs to see a shrink. She needs to be in therapy, not getting married, So, but we're supposed to just like giggle and take it, like she's okay. She wasn't. So in the end, I just really hated that character. I didn't understand anything that Reverend Timi did. I didn't understand how he came to a lot of the conclusions he came to. First of all, start to finish, I don't think he knew what his purpose was, because from the beginning, he had all these attributes that they have told us that he has, and they're like, okay, he's this and that and that, and then he packages all those things into a suitcase and comes to Nigeria to be a priest, and they don't tell us why. And it's, again, because it's a faith-based movie, what is your faith based on? I need to know in order to get with you. I didn't. And then he comes back here, he's living this life, lording it over these colonial subjects, because that was the vibe I got. And then, he stays on after the family dies. That's fine. But then before he goes to confess, he says in the voiceover, I think it was the voiceover, he says, I think this is my purpose. I was like, how is this your purpose? Is being a priest, is the priesthood not your purpose? How is this your purpose? And then at the end again, he now gives us a conflated reason about how he thinks that is his purpose. I'm like, in the end, start to finish, you didn't have a purpose, and that was really heartbreaking, considering. So final thing I think I'll say, oh, sorry, I know you're trying to cut me off, but can I just say, let me just say this last thing. The way he rationalized everything at the end just completely ruined like this movie that was already ruined for me. But, God couldn't save his family. God couldn't heal his broken heart. God couldn't heal the boy that he called his son. God couldn't touch the heart of the bereaved family members in the hospital to donate lungs. But then when it was time for him to die, God came in and happily obliged. So essentially, in this story, God is the Grim Reaper. Like, just, what? This movie is just not for me. Thank you.
All right. No, thanks, Paul. Enjoyed and concurred with a lot of that. All right.
Please, may I have just a minute? Sorry, I remembered my last point. I'm so sorry.
Okay,
A minute's long.
30
30
seconds.
seconds. Okay, quick. So basically, the last thing I wanted to say was just on the whole, like, you know, story structure thing. Um, we have this. How is this possible? How have I lost this again? How am I not able to remember what I was going to say? Oh yes, it's about twists. Real quick. So it's just the whole thing with Sam Dede, and it's the fact that we still don't know how to do like a real twist, a real good twist. You have Sam Dede and Chimeze looking at each other at the beginning, but when the whole church thing comes out and they meet for the first time, even though that I like the performance of pulling him close and speaking into his ear and stuff, it still just doesn't hit home because it wasn't like it's the shotgun on the wall. It's literally like a glimpse of it. It's not even like we really get to see it and somebody references it before it goes up in the third act. So that was, yeah, that twist just did not do it for me. Thanks.
Well, that's a good point. All right. Iku Baba, do you want to?
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll try not to repeat a lot of what the other guys have said because they've really covered a lot and they've really covered a lot of great points. I'd just like to point out a lot of anachronisms in the film. I feel like it's very cool in film discourse these days to say, oh, don't concentrate on the minutiae of history and all of that. But I think a couple of things are just really, really trash. So, I actually took the time to Google to search for the makers of the inhaler that Elijah uses. They weren't making those inhalers in 2003. They were so hard to get. A poor person couldn't get them. Like, that's just one point. I also point out the fact that, the first time they go to the river, now, look at this. This river is big because if you know anything about the Midwest and the West of Nigeria, every single river is important. You'll never find it empty, at least not in 2000, 2001, 2003. But they go to this river and every single time they are there, they're the only ones there. And they have the time to take off, wear bathing suits. And I'm like, everybody in that entire place just leaves the place for the two of you to use every single time. Like, there's just some really, really ridiculous things. Like, you look at the church, for example. Now, it is a church. We are given the lay of the land a couple of the time. So I know that maybe that church is probably a plot or two. It is a small Nigerian town in 2003. Land prices have not gone haywire. If you're an industrialist, why are you looking for a church that you need really bad? Maybe you're an investor. Why is it that church you're looking for? Like, what is the importance of that church? Now, if the church itself is important, maybe that's what you're trying to use to draw people to that place. Why are you trying to demolish it? So what is important about that land? Why does any right-thinking investor want to spend that much money on that land? Again, the money is a problem because even if you look at the price, 49 million naira, you say you paid something for something you already admitted or the film admitted belongs to the British government. You paid the Land Use Act on it for, let's say, a total of maybe 35 years. 35 years you paid it. 49 million naira is still a huge stretch because I think we're thinking of money in terms of 2015 till date. We forget that things were really, really not, 49 million naira. If you called it, land use charge, it's a huge amount of money. And then we're not even talking about the fact that they ignored all the nationalizations that Abacha, Buhari, and Babangida, and all these other guys did to make it almost impossible for British-owned lands to still be in Nigeria at any point beyond the 70s. Like it's almost idiotic. And again, the director himself, I think, is in his middle ages. He's not a young man. It's not like you're looking at a 30-year-old or a 35-year-old. Again, these things are publicly available information. I even went online to check, the Land Use Act as the British have amended it since 1914. Because of this film today. Like, there's just a lot of funny things that are happening. Again, somebody mentioned earlier, I like that the film was in Ibadan. Again, I really want to be honest with you. I don't like that the film was in Ibadan because it barely showed Ibadan. It barely showed Ibadan. I mean, Ibadan is such a storied city. A lot of people in cinema today see it as some sort of holy grail. And, if you're going to present Ibadan to people outside this country, and all we see is a cliff where you park some cars to block the view 80% of the time. We also see a hospital. I don't know, is that Ibadan? Like, I keep, like, there's a lot of world building that has to be done to make Nigerian settings appealing to audiences. Like, to be honest, if I've never been to Ibadan, it doesn't, like, I was planning to go to Ibadan later this year. It kind of like kills the vibe for me because I'm like, is this what they are saying? Like, it doesn't look interesting. So I don't even think, that's anything to write home about. The world building in terms of scenery. We're also looking at the fact that they're just trying to rip off, I think, other movies. Like you look at the Fablemans and the motif of the camera, how it was used in the Fablemans, and they are trying to do that same thing in this particular place. But it just doesn't work. Like, I don't know what is happening. Again, with anachronisms. This is a world where you need to go to Lagos to get projectors. You need to go to Lagos to access your film. But it's also a world where our character, and look, our character's love interest in Genevieve routinely uses babe. Now, it does my head in, continually, that she uses babe about 3 times in the film. I mean, I think all of us here probably must have had an experience of at least middle class Nigeria in the 90s, late 90s and 2000s. As popular as American and British tropes were at the time, I think using, like all these little words that just don't, and people have already talked about how the camera worked, the cinematography wasn't gritty enough. I wouldn't like to tell a filmmaker what to do with their cinematography. Again, I have to wonder, like, we could have done this entire film without the main character. That's the, what's it called? My God, I've even forgotten his name. The boy, Elijah. Yes, like we could have, like, he's not likable. He's spineless. I don't even know. Like, I do not understand what is supposed to make that person likable to us. He's a goody two shoes. We see Tinamba, and Tinamba is just indicative of a lot of things that are unnecessary in this film. Like, what are they doing? She stands up at some point alone with the boy. Nobody else can stand up. Okay, what does it mean that she has gotten up? There is no resistance from her. She takes it just like the boy takes it. And then she sits down. I mean, she consoles him. Like, there's just a lot of unnecessary things that happen. You look at, for example, and people have talked about this, and I still need to talk about it. Like, they just bungle through a lot of things. Like, there's no point in this film where I feel like, so they are trying to make statements. They do statement scenes. There's a lot of shouting. But they don't do the incremental work that's supposed to lead to the statement. So, you just have a lot of shouting, and they expect that the next scene after that shouting, they are cool. So, boy moves from Elijah moves to son. I don't think that's how storytelling is supposed to work. You're not just supposed to bungle through things, and then at the end, you expect people to make sense of it.
All right. Thanks, Iku. We'll probably discuss more during the pushback section. Ava, do you want to tell us, you weren't here for the good, but if you want to do both, good and bad, you still have 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks, guys. So, what I liked about the movie was pretty much everything. What I had issues with some stuff, but the issues I had were because I had to just bear in mind that it's a faith-based movie. What I can't really say what I didn't like because, like, for example, Wale Ojo dying at the end, it's a faith-based movie. He can't kill himself. That would be on faith-based. Like, do you get? So I completely understood it. He went to church, he died, whatever. They took his lungs. So it's completely understandable because it's a faith-based movie. I think people need to give it some leeway because of that. And I also like the fact, since I wasn't here for the like part, that because people were saying, oh, it wasn't that, it didn't lean so much into, just aspect, which is good, because if it did, it would have alienated a lot of people that are not Christian or not necessarily inclined to watch a Christian movie. It was a secular movie, so to speak, with Christian undertones, which is good. It made it very interesting for me, which I enjoyed. The narration, it was good. I liked it a lot. I don't know where all the hate was coming from. The performance in the narration was really good. And I think sometimes a lot of people probably they would watch a movie from a technical standpoint and think to themselves, oh, I will have done this differently, I will have done that differently, and then now criticize it as something wrong with the film. It was a creative choice. I liked the editing of the movie. I didn't think anything was wrong with it. So I would say it was the creative choice of the director and the editor to do it that way. So that you will have done it differently doesn't mean how it was done was not good. And then, I know this is not the pushback section of the thing, so I don't want to get into it now. But what I will say is, generally, I just thoroughly enjoyed this movie. unlike any movie I've watched in a very long time. And of course, as a composer, I have to talk about the score. It was really good. The song choices were great too, but the score was very simplistic and it just fit so perfectly well with all the scenes. I was blown away. So all these criticisms and the hatisms, I don't understand. I mean, are you watching the film to enjoy it, or are you taking a pen and pad just to criticize the simplest things? It is fiction. It is not. The film doesn't start with based on true events. So what if a bad guy has a Tommy gun in the 60s? So what if it's giving South Africa? It's a creative choice. Go with it and enjoy the movie. I don't really think there's anything that terrible about it. At least not terrible enough to say that it was bad. It was the creative choices of the director and the writer, which I respect. And that's all.
All right.
Sorry, before
Wait, wait,
anybody says
wait,
anything,
wait, 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 wait.
sorry.
Oh, no. Hang on. Wait. We'll calm down. Just from the host's perspective, everybody gets to say whatever they feel like. That's the point of Nollywood Film Club. I'll keep on reminding people about this, even though, right, Eva will say I'm attacking him now because so the point of Nollywood Film Club is you come and you discuss how you feel based on whatever you like. The things that were the small things that people were appreciating, you did not call it nitpick, or you did not say people were bringing their pad, note and pen and paper. This for small details. So just accept it. Hey, you like it, you like it. Don't carry. Oh, how can now somebody not like it? Everybody's allowed to like what they like. I mean, people like blood vessel. I've gotten over it. All right. Anyway, I think Ava is the last person, and Mrs. C.
Okay. So sorry, just dropped my. So for one, I'm still not happy with our narrations. And I thought this narration was going to end after setting up should I call it the preface? The prologue, the origin, the background. I thought this was going to end after it, but it continued for the whole film, which I think was an avenue, or was what it gave a chance or an opportunity to kind of tell us the story without showing us the story. And I think that's why a lot of people, including myself, felt unable to fully connect with the emotions of a lot of the characters and fully connect to the emotional scenes. It's why I didn't feel any payoff. It's because you've given me most of this in a voiceover, in a narration, and I haven't watched these relationships develop. I haven't felt these relationships develop. I haven't felt any of this, and so it's just happening, and I don't feel anything. I think the closest I got to feeling something was Eko's character and the little girl getting burnt in the car. But even that I knew it was artificial. You get what I mean? Like, it didn't really make sense to me. It didn't feel earned. So it was that voiceover going through the whole thing. It made everything feel unearned. Understanding some motivations and how, things were happening. So, for instance, when Chimete's character comes to the village, or comes, here, he calls this guy Reverend Timi, or he refers to him as Reverend Timi to someone. Now, this man has not been a pastor probably since Chimete's character was born, right? Where did he hear Reverend Timi from? It might feel like a nitpick, but it's one of those areas where something is feeling forced and you have choked something inside somewhere, right? He has not been a man of God for 30 odd years. Chimete's character is not 30 years old. Where would you have heard this guy referred to as Reverend Timi from? Then this whole thing at the end, the whole secondary conflict, the whole, trying to earn the church, I had no emotional connection to. I was joking that, it's so Hallmark coded, right? We need to come together and save the Christmas tree farm, or save the shop, or, save the bookshop or the cupcake store. But usually the Christmas tree farm has been in your family for generations, right? The bookshop was handed down from your grandmother. And I'm just watching this guy and I'm thinking, okay, you're trying to rip where you did not sow, because what stake do you have in this church building? You run a Bible study group, right? You could host it in someone's living room. But no, you and your little girlfriend, whose dad is the one trying to break down the church, are criticizing this man for not giving you 49 million to save a church building for a God he doesn't believe in anymore. And it's just, I'm watching this happen, it's just annoying. It's annoying. I'm not rooting for you to get 49 million from this man. What do you mean? He doesn't want to give you 49 million. Leave him alone. And also the 49 million in 2003, I don't know how these things work, but it felt like one of those moments of Nollywood being outrageous with numbers, with money. It didn't feel, earned, whatever. But yeah, it's those things within the story. I'm not following these beats. And I think the worst of all was this father-son thing, right? Because when he starts his narration with my father, right, and then I figure out they're unrelated, I'm expecting this, whole process of them bonding into being father and son. But almost all their interactions are borderline abusive, right? We understand he's grieving, sure. But it's giving sycophant calling this man your father when you never heard him refer to you. Closest to the end, we hear him happy that he calls him by his name, right? Not even son. When he starts referring to him as son, homeboy is unconscious. By the time homeboy wakes up, daddy's dead. Where do we get this father-son thing from? As soon as he wakes up, he goes, my father, right? You haven't even seen the will. You don't know that it was so unearned, this father-son thing. And I really wanted to see them develop that. That would have been such a good film to give me, right? Give me that development, because that's where you're getting to. Develop that relationship. Show it to me. Don't give me a voiceover for the whole film. Also, oh God, I forgot something. Shasha part of the story. Oh yes, the religious thing. Again, faith-based film, and this guy whose life mission is to be a pastor, it's not really giving pastor, because he's gonna make this girl mommy Gio, and she's sticking her tongue out in Bible study because she doesn't really care. But this is a faith-based film. It's not like a secular film with somebody who goes to church and his girlfriend who doesn't. It feels weird. It doesn't feel like it works. You get what I mean? It doesn't feel like there's really the main character doesn't go through any transformation, right? Wale just character, sure, comes back to Jesus unearned. But yeah, sure, that happens. And I think finally, I did not enjoy Wale Ojo's acting. He's a good actor. And I think someone mentioned it, that it was giving cartoonish. It was so cartoonish. It was so out there. It just felt really hard to feel like he was a real person. And then the tonal mismatch of this film. We go from this heavy, a mother and child getting burnt in a car, right? A pastor has taken this transformation and gone to murder a man and set his house on fire. And we move into the comedic music in the background as he tries to kill himself. And we switch to a comedy. And I was so confused when it started getting comedic because of that tonal shift. But yeah, I think primarily that's what I didn't like about the film. Didn't like Wale Ojo's acting. I thought he could have been better directed. And I feel like the developments and the story beats and all the payoffs were unearned. Thank you.
Okay. I think Mrs. C has, that surprised me to say I'm still in some of my stuff, but all right. I think, do you speak about narration? Right, so I spoke about the voiceover performance. I think somebody said I liked the narration. I don't think I liked the narration. I think for Nollywood, because again, I think I said when I mentioned the good, sometimes the way we use narration is often lazily thrown in there. But there are parts where, Chimezie was, narrating, and then an action will happen in the film, and he's setting it up and he's leading when Genevieve's character was knocking on the door, I think he said something like she made a mistake. First problem. Yeah. She knocked. Second problem, she knocked when I was, yeah, that kind of thing. It felt like a character, the narrator. However, the narration that was going on, there was a lot of just hey, yes. A lot of the movie felt like a montage, and it goes to a lot of the cohesion issue that some people spoke about at the beginning. I don't like much. I didn't feel anything about the emotional beats of the story. Even when Mrs. C said she almost kind of fell with you know, he meets her and marries her in basically, it's just like, oh, we've got to get through this, and everything feels like the film is like, yeah, we've got to just show you this part, and it doesn't feel like it matters. It just feels like FYI. That's what a montage feels like to me when you're doing it like that. That's how it comes across for me. When you're just, oh, and then they went to the courts, oh, and then they this, that, oh. Anyway, some of like Blood Vessel, some of the I think there are some Hollywood tropes that don't work for us. I think there was a part where young Timi points, he's in the court and he points. I thought that was very, very cheesy, and he was like, can you identify the man? He's over there, points, and it's done in slow motion. Oh no. Did not there are several aspects like that. There's some of, I think Uchenna spoke about some of Chimezie's delivery of his lines for some things, but I just felt like those lines are sort of things that just work in Hollywood, and we don't have that we don't have a reference point for these exact words. So none of the emotional beats worked for me. I think I said that. Shift in tone, Mrs. C touched on it. I will say, yes, going from burning wife and kids right in front of you to revenge, where you go and kill this guy in cold blood. And then we're having comedic giggle about how you want to kill yourself / people, the butlers who are coming to work for you, they're shooting at them. I don't know what this is. It was actually shooting at them. I thought, he hit one of his statues outside or something. I was like, I'm not sure what's going on. It feels like we swapped movies halfway. Lead performances for me, I did not like either of them. Both Wale and Chimezie. I thought their characters were supposed to be getting warmer and but I didn't see that in their performance. Except when the script was telling them you're actually being nice here. Mm-hmm. Nothing in their voice changed. Everything Wale just said from beginning to the end of the movie, when the script wasn't just saying you're being nice, right? Was just venom, angry. It was just throughout. Even when they had come together at points, right? There's not you could have still said exactly the same words, but with just a little bit more, nuance in there that he doesn't really mean it now, like it's an act or something like that. But it just was that. It was just he was just angry throughout, angry old man. Which, and I said again, Pixar movie reminded me of Up. Actually, when the guy comes to drop some cookies for the old man, and he's just like, but in Up. Again, that performance changes when he when he becomes warmer towards the boy. Anyway, before I go on a tangent, I felt the same thing again also for Chimezie. Chimezie was just like, I'm scared, I'm shy from beginning of the end till the end. It's there was no nuance in the performance for me. With, I think, Genevieve, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of her work, but I thought Genevieve was probably the better actor here, which in terms of the way she interpreted her character. But yeah, that'd be it for me. There were a lot of nothing emotional stuck for me. It just felt more like blood vessel again in parts. It's just more, and it's really disappointing because I watched God Calling, and I don't particularly like God Calling, but like I saw things in God Calling that made me somewhat excited for this, and like more expect. And I feel like Moses Iwan could have made this film, and that's maybe hey, maybe somebody like Moses. Moses Iwan makes films, right? He tries to make films, but like again, is that sometimes you're caught in the 80s or 90s, or you've seen a film and like you're not translating it well. Is that thing about copying your neighbor and you're copying your neighbor's name sometimes? Anyway, yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, so we are going to pivot into the pushback section. If there's something somebody said that you disagree with, you wanted to flesh out, please go ahead. All right. I think I saw Damola's hand. And then Oyinka and then Uchenna. Damola, do you want to tell us some?
I have a few things. I don't know who said what, but actually, one of the biggest things that I'd like to push back on, and I'm sure nobody will agree with me on this, but okay, so it's not that I think that it was technically sound, but the tonal shift. I have a problem with the tone of the movie in general. Like I couldn't place it, and that's probably because you're right. The tonal shifts were really jarring and abrupt, right? However, actually, at the point where he tried to kill himself and he couldn't, I actually giggled and I was intrigued by it. I was like, okay, are we going off on a different tangent here? What is this about? I actually kind of liked him chasing his houseboy out by shooting. I know it still felt kind of colonial and a little contrived, but still, like, it kind of worked for me. I don't want to say it worked, but it worked for me. And so I don't know. And then also just um I didn't mind like a lot of the stuff about you know just the film not being very realistic with the gangsters on bikes and stuff like that. That I completely disagree with. I have no issue with films ever taking liberties with that kind of thing as long as it just kind of works with the film. So if the point is that it didn't work for this film, I'll agree. If the point is that um is that it's just not realistic to have gangsters on bikes with permed hair in the 1960s, that I don't agree with. It doesn't matter because, to be honest with you, this whole film just felt very sort of. They played a lot with the timelines. We all kind of saw that we couldn't tell what year it was, and everything. I mean, you guys are saying 2003. I saw a hospital that, at some point I was like, why am I seeing SUVs and stuff? I was like, oh yeah, of course, it must be present day or something, but I know they said like 50 years later, so my math is not mathing, but either way, it was modern times as opposed to um, the period, right, and everything. So all those kinds of things like, oh, this not being realistic or that not being realistic, I think that we should try and move away from even using that term for films, especially fictional films, and just focus on authenticity. Like, does it work within the space that it's being used in? And then the other thing, and Eva may say I'm attacking him because I do remember what Eva, but a lot of this excuse of creative choices, there are creative choices, and I think that actually for the most part, most of the people I have heard criticize things in films have been actually honest enough to say when they're making a point that they're like, no, it's a creative choice, and so I'm just stating my preference at this point. Um, but I think that a lot of the concerns that were made actually are genuine, with the film. This film has not even received half the hate that a film like, say, Collision Course, which I still maintain was not as bad as people made it out to be, got. But not to digress, I don't think there's a lot of hate. I think people actually really enjoyed this film, but they were kind of let down by it, which in its own way is just a way of saying, actually, we expected a lot and we feel like this could have been really good. And there are a lot of things that we like, but the things that we didn't like just hurt us because, we were expecting to be wowed. by this film. So I guess those are kind of the things I wanted to push back on for now. I don't know. I always forget things, but yeah, those are kind of things that I would like to push back on.
All right. No, thanks, Damo. Ainka,
So sorry. Narration. You mentioned it already. Yeah, just not actually. Maybe it's not a pushback. Yeah, just not a big fan of it. I agree with you actually that in terms of just Chimezie's voice, like it seemed like he was actually a character, like saying things and expressing things with emotion, as opposed to just reading his script and telling us. But yeah, it was done way too much. I actually agree. I think it was Mrs. C that said that she thought it was just going to be in the beginning, and then it kept on going. I feel the same way. Like 10 minutes in, they really should have just stopped and let the film tell us the rest of the story. Yeah.
all right. Thanks, Damo. All right. Ainka,
Yeah. So my pushback might sound contradictory, but life is a contradiction. So whatever, we have to we live with it. Um, I I indeed am kind of like a stickler for a little bit more historical things, but not necessarily in film, because I kind of pick and choose based on like the type of movie it is. For instance, if you're the King's Oxman and you're trying to go out there to be like an Oscar category and everything, right? It's a movie that's very based on an historical moment, and the moment of the history is very important for it, right? That's why I was a little bit historically critical of that movie from the way it was presented a little bit, but not as much because again, whatever. Or woman king. If you just said that, look here, we're Braveheart, we're having fun, and not try to be like, no, this is real, actual history is based on truth, and argue with like historians who are like trying to say like, okay, this is not really, it would have been nothing. This type of movie too, I think we shouldn't like. The only reason why I brought up the colonial thing, it's more of a, for me, it doesn't gel well. It doesn't gel well. This one, I would say, this one is coming from maybe my own political and like ideological something. It's nice for the writer to write that. We don't all have to agree. We don't see the world all the same way. That's, I know I pointed it out. I pointed it out because it makes no sense. This is 35 years. This is the British, not necessarily. And also, as the person has pointed out, a lot of things happened from the 1970s and everything that made it not to be, not for that to be possible. And a lot of, and I have to say something, this is also kind of, this is a little tangent, but a lot of Nigerian movies that have come out recently, I've been picking like American historical things. Like, why do you think a lot of Russians were in a lot of American movies in the 1980s and something? That has to do with Americans, like politicals and geovert something. If you're going to copy from America, it's okay. It's cool. But tailor it to like, to what's it called? Tailor it to Nigeria and Nigerian political something. So maybe you want to have a little bit more of something, but it's okay. You don't have to actually do that. You can do whatever you want. Like it's kind of like Koreans copy a lot from America. So do the Chinese copy a lot from American movies. But you will see something. The Chinese will talk about the Japanese because they are Japanese colonialism. And the Koreans will talk about Japanese because they are Japanese colonialism. They're not talking about Russians. I don't get this. But that's just like a little for me. But I don't think we should be like critical to the point of like talking about the inhaler kind of the some, because this movie is not really that much of a historical something. It doesn't really, it's more of a backdrop for it. I do think it is fair game to criticize the whole like colonial thing, that all, because there's like in the basics, even in your backdrop, there's no need. There's no need for you to go bring some white person to do this. You literally have it there, like, oh, the colonial, it's a local government thing. Literally get a local government person to do it. I don't know why you went to go get a white person from. It's so difficult. Even in the colonial period, we didn't have that many white people. There's a reason why Nigeria doesn't have that many white people, and Southern Africa and like East Africa kind of do. Even Ghana has more white like colonials that stayed, right? You had to go find one, a British person, to put in your movie where you already written it. And I see I'm supporting the movie. Like, okay, we shouldn't like be that and all about it, about historical something. I know it's weird coming from me, but it's just pointing out something that was a little something. But
All right.
that's what I'm just saying. This movie is not that historical something. It's trying to get to a practical story. And for that, I think we should be a little bit more
Sorry.
forgiving of its historical anachronisms, except for the colonial thing, because that one felt
Sorry.
like very
Okay.
personal.
Okay. No.
I have
Excuse
to
me.
say it because it's ridiculous.
All right. No. Okay. See, I think you entered the point where you feel like you're going to start gatekeeping what you feel people can criticize. This is why we don't have any gates.
No. I'm not
I
telling people
understand.
not to
I understand
criticize
your
that.
pushback. I don't want to go back and forth again. I do want to. I'm just saying, like, I hear what you're saying, like, oh, but like, when you say you don't think the person should criticize in here, like, if you want to go as criticizing here, like, criticize in here, like, if you want, like, that's why it's just come here, say what you want, and you give somebody you can come and say like you have. I think it's like I don't think the using the period piece part of the movie is just, I think, works effectively as a backdrop, and I don't think it needs to be that accurate. That's fine. Yeah. All right. Anyway, Uchenna, please go on.
Okay, let me see if I can get through this. Some of my stuff is going to be actual pushback, and some of it is just adding to other people's commentary or answering questions. Okay, the first one, I think Aware asked, why was the guy, after all his accomplishments in the UK, why did he come back to be a reverend? I think that's actually kind of accurate to a certain time in Nigerian society, where being a reverend actually was a pretty elite occupation to have. It was a sign of a certain kind of education and sophistication. Although that may have been in the 1930s or the 40s, not in the 60s. But, I don't really look at the representation of the past in this movie as trying to be documentary. The past is just this sort of amorphous, romantic past where all sorts of different things come together. I think they actually shouldn't have, that point where they wrote the years 1960, I think they shouldn't have done that. I think it would have been, as much as it had a storybook feel to it, I think it would have been better to just make the past be like many years ago. And, you can just throw a bunch of different things into the past that way. But one thing I do agree with Aware is that I think she said that they should have shown him trying to kill himself more. And I agree, that probably would have given much more of a dramatic tautness to it, rather than, we see the scenes where every night he's just crying and holding the teddy bear. It would have been much more interesting and funny and dramatic if he had kept on trying to kill himself and failing until he meets Elijah and Elijah gives him some reason to live. Of course, we don't know what it is that Elijah brings to it. Here, I'm actually sort of replying to Mr. C, where he talked about how that relationship with Elijah and Timi didn't really seem to have much of a center to it. Yeah, because I mean, like, what exactly? We don't see anything that Elijah did different. Like, this story is essentially, in some ways, a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, where, Timi is the beast, but where the beast was, secluded from human contact all these years, we get the sense that Timi wasn't. In fact, we're told that he had a butler for many years who was kind of like family to him. So how come it's not the butler who brought him back into humanity? What exactly did Elijah bring that was different? Okay, Damola, yes. Okay, I want to ask where Damola said something about the look of the movie seeming inconsistent to him. I want to ask, what parts did he feel looked different or substandard to other parts? Was it exterior scenes? Then, okay, also I want to push back to Damola here, and I think I might push back to Ava at the same time. I said pretty clearly that I'm not looking for realism. I don't need it to be realistic at all. Like, if you told me that Baby Fire was an alien from Mars who came down to do this stuff, I would accept it, as long as it fits with the tone that you've created up until that point. I mean, I'm not looking for a documentary adherence to history. I mean, when you look at something like Quentin Tarantino's last couple of movies, like Inglourious Bastards and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, They are set in historical settings with real historical figures, but yet the narrative takes a completely different path than what actually happened in real life. But that is credible because the environment that is created allows you to accept that. So when I talk about the fact that the gangster didn't look like he was from the 60s and he didn't look Nigerian, it's not just that one thing. It's a bunch of different things adding all together. For example, we're told that the reason for Baby Fire's whole existence is that he was hired by the remaining colonialists to take out the guy who was saying that all whites should leave. Now, like Oyiko just said, we didn't really have a lot of white people in Nigeria. So that whole idea of trying to chase the whites out of Nigeria, I'm sorry, it feels like South Africa to me. And even the white guys that they showed that were giving Baby Fire his instructions, there was something about the way they were looked, the way they were styled. They looked like Boers. So that whole storyline felt like South Africa to me. And again, I would have no problem with that South African storyline being dropped into the middle of this if only it had been, if only tonally it had been massaged better to fit in with it. And I just don't think it did, you know? So, okay, here's to Ava. Ava was saying that, look, these are creative choices and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that is all true. I'm always very wary of telling an artist how they should have done the work, because the retort then is, look, if you want to tell a different story from what I told, you should make your own movie. And that's true. But sometimes if you can sort of determine what you think the objective of the artist was, then we can evaluate whether the artistic choices they made serve them well to accomplish that particular goal or whether they worked against their goal. So it's not enough of a justification to say it's an artistic choice, they can do whatever they want. Yes, you can do whatever you want, but is that choice going to help what you're trying to do? It's like if I say I want to get up in the morning and film the sunrise, and I get up and I make the choice to point my camera towards the west, whereas the sun rises in the east. Yeah, it's my choice, but is it the right choice? And then finally, Mr. C, yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you when you say that Moses Nwang could have directed this movie. No disrespect to Moses Nwang, I think he's a very competent and adventurous director in his own right, but I think that his style is a bit more of a journeyman style than what is here. I think this movie is much more ambitious than what Moses Nwang would have done.
All right, thanks for checking. I did take that back. All right. So you're off mute. But Elizabeth's about to speak. Elizabeth.
Okay, so I not exactly a pushback, but just wanted to touch on the anachronism that was in the film. Um, I didn't think it was a problem the moment I realized that there was a style that the filmmaker was going for. Now, it may not feel like it because I think overall there is a question in which that was missing, in which the director did not achieve that style that they were going for. So they were probably going for something stylized again, maybe something fancy. It's not natural, and this is a world where anything goes, right? So in a world where anything goes, time, design, whatever, just stands still. Again, it doesn't feel. Again, that is my personal opinion. I thought so. So a bunch of the anachronism at some point didn't stand out to me, but I also realized that because the film texture looks real as opposed to making use of all the other intent and purposes, right? So I see how it become jarring because it also kept taking me out every time I see something that shouldn't be there. But because they've decided to shoot it with this crisp, brightly lit, for whatever reason, they said to color grade it in the brightest realistic take. That's the problem. But my own opinion is that the anachronism didn't stick to me because I felt like, that world was just a world in which they wanted to achieve some magical realism, which again probably bungled. Yeah. Okay. Before then, I wanted to actually complete my bad, but I think everybody has said they really it's in the storytelling, and it was just surface, superficial at the heart of it. Nothing was explored, or the emotions were hardly there. Didn't feel sorry. I laughed almost every time and something was happening. I was laughing. Anything big happening, I was laughing. Somebody was dying, I was laughing. So again, maybe because of the style, it just didn't achieve what it was meant. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, I had some of those moments as well. All right, Iku Baba.
Hi. Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to, reiterate, as you said, that at the end of the day, you can point out the fact that certain criticisms might be malicious in intent very easily. Like, it's very easy if criticism is malicious. I remember, like, recently Ridley Scott's latest movie, the Napoleon thing. I was all for, all his side on, against historians on that angle. Number one, because you have to understand context. Napoleon is a very, very widely visited topic. There is nothing Ridley Scott will do in 2023 that will derail scholarship of what's it called, of Napoleon in 2020, of Napoleon as we know him. That's number one. Number two, so when we now relate that to Nigeria, it's that Nigeria is a very, very dark place. Like, let me give you an example. You would have to go to Oyo State, literally go to Oyo State or visit the National Library to find figures for Oyo State's budget before, I think, anytime before 2015. So when Nigerian filmmakers cannot have the luxury of saying, and we're going to actually just use historical Nigeria as a backdrop. It's not something that we have the luxury of doing, Nigerian artists. Every single time we have an opportunity to get into the meat of our history, we should take it seriously. There is no scholarship that Tarantino will do with Inglourious Basterds, with Germany, Nazi France, that will bungle the discussion that has happened for the last 77 years about Nazism. You understand what I'm saying? So I like us to always look at it historically. And again, when you point out the small things about historical anachronisms, small things incrementally add to big failures or big successes. That's just the truth in film. When you do the small things right, it's much more likely that when people think about it as a whole, holistically, they're not jarred. And so if you say, let's forgive every small thing, I think we've already started derailing from the point of criticism, because you could look at every single thing everybody has said here as a small thing, as a really, really minute, ignoble thing. So I think, we should always look at criticism from the point that everybody's allowed to criticize from an angle, and that Nigerian filmmakers do not have in context the same luxury to play with history about this country, as sensitive, as important as it is, just because. And again, as Uchenna mentioned, there was no premise created before or after that made me feel like they were trying to go for a situation where they will play with historical facts, they will play with historical figures, they will do things, because every single thing that they did, in fact, they started the entire narration presenting Timi to us as this sort of like epochal figure. So I was thinking, okay, maybe they're trying to tie him into some bigger part of Nigeria's history. For example, the part about the princess telling him to come and pray, Princess Alexandra, I think, coming to come and pray, and she asked for him by name, a scene which I thought was unnecessary, by the way, could just have been narrated. I thought they were trying to tie him into the larger history of Nigeria through independence, the struggle. Of course, they veered away from that. But that was the feeling in my head. And they did nothing after that to make you feel like, again, they leaned on Nigeria's love for the Anglican Church in the 50s and 60s to establish this guy as someone who was doing all that in Britain to come back home to be a reverend. So why can't I criticize them? Why can't anybody criticize them from the angle of something that they have, set a very, very solid foundation for? A lot of their story is resting on that, on the premise, in fact, on our interactions with the British. I mean, there are still a lot more anachronisms that we could point out, but since anachronisms are not necessary in a anachronistic, or criticism is not necessary in a film that claims to, from what I saw, to be a realistic film, to be a film that obviously is fictional, but is playing heavily with realism. So I think that's the first thing. Number two is that the structure of the film is such that, and I think somebody has raised it before, it feels like they did a lot of scenes and then in post they started removing things. I think somebody has even, I've even seen a post on my Twitter today where somebody said, oh, some of the makeup artists or the SFX person said some of the some of the frames didn't make it into the final cut and all of that. So it feels like maybe there are points of this entire film that we are missing, that have been removed, points that were supposed to lead us into loving these characters. Like I bring up the point about the church again. From everybody's angle in this film, why is the church important? Never established. You could do your services elsewhere. This guy could build his hotel elsewhere. I mean, why does he have to pay 49 million naira for a plot of land in rural Nigeria in the early 2000s? I don't even think they are selling a plot of land like that. There are probably a very, very few places that they are selling a plot of land for that amount in the entirety of this country. 49 million naira. So, okay, we are calling real figures. You're calling real naira. You're calling real years. Yeah. You're making, what's it called? I mean, the doctor, for example, says somewhere that, we can't help him because the list of people that even need to get this particular thing he needs is exhaustive, isn't it? So the doctor says that. Now, we know that this was a situation of a particular period in time in this country. That is a historical fact. It's probably still like that in many places in this country, but it's not as bad. Pulmonary dialysis, all of those things have improved in Nigeria in the last 10 years. But in that particular period, they leaned on that historical fact. So you can always criticize them for every historical mistake they make because they never made a point to play around anything else. That's just what I want to say.
All right. No, thanks, Iku. Richard, as it fast, wanted to move to summaries, to be honest. Actually, I haven't heard from it.
Yeah, it is fast. It is fast. It's not even a huge thing, really. I mean, because originally I did want to comment on Ikubaba's some of what he was talking about, things like the river not being crowded enough, and some of the things about the details of money and how much things cost in 2003. Yeah, I really don't think that it's going for that kind of realism. I think it's impressionistic. We're trying to create a romantic scene at the river, and having 1 million people over there isn't going to give you what you need. So I don't think there's anything wrong with presenting it. It's not trying to say that this is a documentary representation of Ibadan in this particular year. So I don't think it's really necessary to look at that stuff. Yeah, that's the point at which I was originally saying that. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, that's fine. Just behind the mic, Missy says she'd allow some stuff, but
I said I'd allow the lake, but I'm not allowing the 49 million.
All right. Okay. All right. I know we haven't heard from you in a bit.
Yeah, I'm just going to agree with some things I said. Basically, I still don't understand why Imo was special and why he had to be the one that was selected as the houseboy. There were too many stories. My friend has even mentioned that she thought the movie was to shed more light on organ donation and things like that. But I still believe like it's a faith-based story. So, and to the historical point, I thought that the church being important was to show us why the church still exists today. I don't know if that building still exists today, but like they set up so many things using those historical points, and then we should be able to validate if they are true or not. Basically, that's how I feel about it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anchor, please make it quick.
Because you said it that way, I'm going to make it long. But no, I'm not good. This is I just want to say something. The thing I want to say is that I do agree with the idea that Nigerian filmmakers, I think I even said it in the pushback, Nigerian filmmakers need to be more knowledgeable about Nigeria and like tailor whatever they're copying to Nigerian things a little bit more. Because House of Secret kind of annoyed me with that. And other movies kind of annoyed me with that. But my pushback is just this. The Napoleon, not people, the full, like, sure, yes, you're not really going to be impacting the scholarship. Scholarship is different than movies. You never expect a movie to be historically accurate and have the historical realism and study. You have to go to like archives and read this. So you have to do that, or that a scholar or a professor of history or something that a historian should do. And I don't think they should. Those are two different fields. But to say that, Napoleon, the movie Napoleon is not all those things like Napoleon's life has a light into it, and people and the greater people know about Napoleon. They know who Napoleon is. They don't know the historical something about that. There's popular history, which really does get promoted most of the time. Most of the time, it's popular history is bad. It's really bad. And then there's actual like scholarship history. I think Nigerian filmmakers can do the same thing. The difference for me is just that I just want filmmakers, whether Nigeria or all over the world, should just know that whatever they are making is not going to be historical something. And if a writer is going to write about, like, oh, try to correct some of that in an article and not necessarily blame them, why are you going to be like, oh, this is truly, truly, truly the truth? No, you're not. It's okay to be Braveheart. I like Braveheart. Woman King is a good movie. Just stay in your lane. That's the thing. And Nigerian filmmakers should have that too. I get what you're saying. We're not as popular to the world. We're not as da. I don't care. I don't care we're not as popular to the world. The world should come to us. That's what I think.
All right.
Europeans, So let's give them freedom to
All
do
right.
that.
Okay.
That's
All right. Thanks, Erika. Pearl, you have your hand up.
Oh yes, hi. Oh, I didn't get around to Pushback.
All
I
right.
don't have any specific like person to remember what they said, but I think I'm just going to say something about the discussion around anachronism and the historical whatever. I'm just going to say that I've listened to both sides of the argument, and to varying degrees, I agree with either side. However, for me personally, I want to take a film seriously and take it at its word and respect its claim, right? So, if sorry, if you say a film is like faith based, you've made a statement, you've promoted it as such. I want to believe you, and I want to respect that. And how can I respect it if you yourself don't respect what you've said? And then, so also, if you go to this film on Prime, it says under like the whatever category, genre, whatever, it says there's historical there. I think that's a specific thing. So if you claim that it's historical and then you want to play fast and loose, how am I supposed to respect you then? Like you have to like either don't make the claim, leave it, and let's decide that it is or isn't. Put the dates there. But if you make the claim, then back it up. Essentially, Ecuador had fucking gel nails, and let me tell you what I feel about this. Whether like yes, it's true that it's the filmmakers like choice. I agree. However, while you might have a right and exercise that right, the what's the word I'm looking for? What that could cause, however, is you can lose me for like however long it takes for me to get distracted out of the narrative while mulling that point. Like I probably left the movie to go and Google when gel nails became like a thing not very long ago actually. So and then she's been in Nigeria at that point for 8 years. I was looking at her hair, I was looking at her nails. I was like, did she come with her personal stylist from the UK? So if the choices you make, like make them, they're your choice to make. Nobody said you shouldn't, but you need to ask yourself if that choice is serving the story or it's distracting the viewer out of the experience. If it's taking me out of the experience, it's a bad choice, and it's my right to say that it's a bad choice. It's your right to make it. It's my right to say I didn't like it. So that takes me to the next thing, which is, can people please stop coming here to reprimand people for saying what they want to say? Like, and I know that probably sounds crazy, me saying that, because I'm reprimanding that person that came to reprimand everyone and calling people nitpickers. Like, please don't come here and tell people. There are some people that are so nervous. Me, I can fight anybody here all day long, but it's not everyone who like knows how to
come out and speak. So don't come and shut people up and silence them, and that kind of vibe that seems like you were paid to come here and talk and defend. Like, just don't do it. If you don't like these spaces, go somewhere, go to Cinema Pointer or somewhere, where you can go and whatever. So here, people just say what they feel, and what might not be important to you might be the most important thing to somebody. So don't come here and say people are nitpicking. I'm not going to say anything more about that. As far as this movie, another thing that I would have really liked to see was to see Reverend Timi at this point get reintroduced into the community, like when he started to come back to himself. We've already agreed that was not played very well, but one of the things I would have liked to see was a reintroduction into community, into society. He just kind of lived and died in that. Our house kind of became like his mausoleum. And speaking of that house, by the way, we showed this very massive edifice, but then it ended up being condensed into pretty much 2 rooms throughout the entire film. And then another last thing I'm going to say about his character is that he seemed to get all his validation from proximity to white people. And if that was the intention of the filmmaker, then that's fine. But, it's from Cambridge to the princess to that house that looked like a castle in the UK to the church that he was coming to establish here, and then also invoking the powers of, again, colonialism. So that character, it just makes me question the character and by extension the filmmaker, and like I said before, his politics. All right, thank you.
All right. No, thanks, Phil. I think it's reached that time to wrap it up, nigga. All right. Elizabeth, do you want to give us your summary of Breath of Life?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Before I even continue, I was thinking of which film. I was trying to think of the reference for a film that mismatched anachronism, like history. Then I remembered, oh God, Forrest Gump put himself in every historic whatever as the person that did it. Again, like I said, if you're going for stylized, there's sometimes that anachronism will happen, especially with history. But then it has to be fit for purpose and this sort of overarching texture of feel that the film is trying to achieve, which this film did not achieve, unfortunately. So what is my summary? Or is that I started watching this without any expectation. Just hearing Chimevize's voice, I thought, I liked the tone in which he was narrating, felt very Nigerian, and then felt very measured. I was like, not bad. And then the first 10 minutes, 90 minutes happened quickly, and I thought something was there, and then everything just went down again. The lack of cohesion, especially in tone, really did my head in for this film. While some of the coloring was nice, the use of colors, rather, the overall use of the color grading, giving it this very bright look for something that's supposed to, have a different feel in its use, like stylized. Again, trim me out. What else? It was very bubblegummy in its style, like Bridgerton, but in a bad way. Too realistic. Let me put that word. And so he ended up being artificial. I didn't like that. For a Christmas movie, because Nollywood has refused to give us a Christmas movie. Perfect Gas Blues. They decided that, oh yeah, I thought this would, before I actually completed it, while still watching, I thought this, was going to, it had this community feel, right? And I thought, I was like, oh yeah, so there's going to be a second chance story. There's going to be community. Yeah, okay, maybe these can work as our Christmas movie, but then it just nosedived from there. God knows why. This film decided to choose 3 conflicts, of which all the 3 conflicts felt underwhelming. So that's I didn't eventually it did not have that emotional core for me. It had no push. I really generally enjoy movies that explore human interaction in elevating character arc. This did nothing for the character arcs, that especially for Reverend Simi, who is it a reverend or not. I didn't like the metaphor for offering your life. It just was shoddily done. Sometimes this film felt choppy in parts, questioning the editing choices. I, yeah, so overall, it felt like a carousel of some sorts, like a PowerPoint presentation in such a way where there is no actual storytelling in flow, in fluidity. So it was just things happening as like post-its. I don't know. Overall, it was fine to look at. I like the pictures, the colors, I like the style. If only it was properly explored, I would have said this is great artistic choice from the director. Everything would have worked together for its good, but rather it just fell apart like a pack of cards, unfortunately. But it was better film this year, I'm not gonna lie. Better than a bunch of things that I've watched this year. Better than a lot of big budget films. Yes, I'm shading. So that's it for me. Wrapping up 2023, the NFC. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I appreciate all of your commitment and all of your takes. All right. Okay. Here's a summary. I think, Uchenna, you're next.
Yeah, all in all, everything being said, I think that this movie is a very wonderful effort. Um, is it a movie that imprinted itself upon my soul? The kind of movie that I'm going to go keep on thinking about and watch over and over again? For me personally, no. But I can see it being that for some other people, and I appreciate that. I think that they did a really good job. It's very well produced. There was a lot of ambition and there was a sense of vision, which is something I keep on saying that I want to see more of in Hollywood. I just think that the screenplay could have used maybe an additional draft or two, and I think maybe a few different choices, a few different visual choices. I would have said that it's a classic. Um, but as it stands, I think it's probably a strong contender for best Nollywood movie of the year. And the day that somebody writes the story of Nollywood, the history of Nollywood, and hopefully that person will be me. I think this movie will be mentioned as a landmark that set a certain standard. So I think the movie's okay. I just wish they had done some things that were different. Also, in summary, summarizing Film Club as well, since this is the last space of the year. This is why I think that this group is so important as well. I mean, when somebody writes the history of Hollywood, Nollywood, I think we'll talk about this group as well because it's really I think it's essential for us to analyze these movies in this way and figure out what worked and what didn't work and why it's important to have an educated audience that understands the dynamics of storytelling and the dynamics of filmmaking. So I really do appreciate this group for that reason. Like just having this conversation now, I I I've, I mean I thought I had already thoroughly analyzed this movie in my mind, but after having this conversation, it's brought so many new thoughts into my head that I can see how this would have been such a different and so much superior movie if it had had some of the alterations that people have talked about here. Unfortunately, that's past. Maybe somebody in the future will pick up on that and make an even better movie. So it's really important that we have these conversations. I think it really does help Nollywood grow. So I'm appreciating this group as well.
Oh, thanks, Jenna. Very kind words. And it's great. NFC is very fortunate to have had you join us. I really appreciate your contributions week in, week out. And yeah, so I still owe you that conversation. There's still a conversation we have to thrash out, and we will do it. All right. Ewere, do you want to
referee?
Sure. By all means. Ewere, do you want to give us your summary of Breath of Life?
Yes. So first of all, I think a lot of people joined when we're talking about the bad parts, and we actually are not. It comes from a place of care, and I really liked this movie. I really liked this movie. I think it was a very good outing. It felt like someone sat down and thought about this movie. And if you've watched a lot of movies this year, that's a lot. That's a lot. I'm saying it like in a very kind way. So it feels like someone sat down and thought about this movie, and that's like very, very good. And it's a really good movie. The bad parts don't take away from the good parts. And I felt like I think the only thing I maybe not met like the only thing would be it felt like a very long movie, but then I think they were able to keep me watching. And then I really didn't like how they portrayed God if it's supposed to be a faith based movie. So I think I still don't understand if it's a faith-based movie or it's just like a feel-good movie. But then it's still a fantastic movie, and I'm excited to see what BB Sasore does. Yeah.
No, all right. Thanks, very. I appreciate your comments. I think we have Vanessa.
Hi everyone, I'm home now, so my internet will not do higgy haga.
Oh, look at you, hearing you nice and clear.
So I had typed up like a mini summary when I thought I wouldn't make it home in time for the summaries, but look at me doubting film club for going past 3 hours. My summary that I wrote and I'm still going to add to is great gowns, beautiful gowns. Breath of Life was a visually appealing film. And like Ewere said, it felt a lot of the filmmaking, especially with like the visual aspects and like shots that were taken and like how a lot aesthetically it felt intentional, and that's a plus. But sadly, the storytelling didn't feel as intentional. It felt very superficial, surface level. The editing made it feel very choppy and disconnected. But all in all, it was a good outing, especially to close the year off with. I think we've had such a horrifying year for film in Nollywood that this feels like a nice salve to end the year with. I'm hoping that next year Nollywood takes care to fully explore character relationships and help the audience feel a lot more connected to these characters that you want us to, so that we don't feel this disconnect and speak about feeling like something was lacking even though we enjoyed the film visually. But yeah. Oh, also guys, it is a faith-based film because where else will you get a magical long that then ties into the name of the film, Breath of Life with a magical long. Guys, think about it.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Vanessa. Incon, do you want to give us your summary? Incon, are you there?
I am there. My phone closes, so I have to open it. Now, I apologize. What's the name of the man who spoke about the historical inaccuracies so deeply?
Just do your summary. Just do your summary, please.
Yeah, I'm doing my summary. I just want to say listening to him was amazing, and that I feel like Nollywood people should go to him because he's a very good researcher, and you can hear when a good researcher about history talks. I apologize for I don't know people's names. Forgive me.
Ikubaba something.
Thank you. I hope he comes back. It's
I'll
very
match making, don't
memorable.
worry. I'll
Okay,
sort you out. I got you.
thank you. So this film is superficial, but there's nothing wrong necessarily with being superficial. Sometimes it's saccharine. It's very, very sweet. It's very, very visually. It is wonderful to see. I do say that they did successfully in many ways create this sort of visual language for the movie that you can sort of know that it's a little bit reality plus, and it's wonderful now, but it is very superficial. It is very superficial. It does have a bit of it's a very quietly white saviorism movie. I don't know why that's happening in Nigeria, but it's happening. Now, should you watch this movie or not? Everybody knows I'm a little bit anarchistic in this. You decide that. Movies, in the end of the day, are to entertain you after a long day of work or whatever, or anything. Give it 30 minutes. And if you don't like it, you can change it. There's a lot of movies made around the world. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of movies that we can all collect. Find one, watch it, enjoy yourself. Learn from it, do whatever. Freedom. I'm never going to. I look. The one good thing about now to come. This is our last space of the year, and I'm very, very thankful that I have this to come to every Sunday. Thank you guys, and I apologize. Sometimes I'm a little bit mischievous, so thank you guys for taking on that. If I know you, I apologize. I wish you guys the best um, for throughout the remaining year and the coming year. Also to the MCs, thank you for creating the space. And one thing that is good about the space and why I always say I'm never going to tell you what to do or anything is because perspectives are so married in this world. They're so different. And nobody has the answers. And that is what tells us we listen, we see, and we see how wonderful and lovely this world can be, and also how dangerous and how crazy and how like what it is. And I hope this continues on to the next year too, or as long as it ever does, as it does. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your night, day. I don't know. You're all over the world.
Thanks, Ing.
Freedom.
Thanks, Ing. I appreciate it. And Pearl, do you want to give us your summary?
Okay. Yeah. Well, just to echo like the gratitude of other people to say I'm really grateful. I only discovered this space not very long ago, and I'm just grateful for this space and the work that we're doing here. I think that this is so critical to this industry. Like, if we didn't have any other critics anywhere, but we had this space, I think it would be all we needed, because there's just such a multiplicity of voices and opinions, and I learn so much every time I come here. In fact, I try to make sure that I've done my review before I come here so that I don't start second guessing myself. But I'm just grateful that every single one is like a learning opportunity, and I hear so many different ways of thinking that help me also reevaluate my positions on certain things. Then, as far as this movie specifically, every movie like like this that has so much potential, and then sometimes we just come here so gung-ho to talk about whatever we want to say, what we liked, what we did not like, and sometimes we tear in and all the things, but at the heart of it, I think, is that we just really love this industry. And so whenever we come here and the summary is we're not crazy about this film, I think for me it's a deep sadness. There's nothing to celebrate about, oh, I came. Some people think we just come here to kind of masturbate about how much we did not like a film, but really, I think it's an expression of just optimism, but also sadness. We recognize our potential, and we're just a little bit frustrated that it's not coming through quite yet. And so we just are just saying we want to see it, and then every movie that comes close and then just takes the wrong turn at a critical point is just a sadness, it's just a frustration, it's just that feeling. I can't remember who it was that really put this eloquently here. Somebody who spoke before me had already expressed this sentiment. So I I don't know who I'm Jesus I don't know who I'm talking to here, but just to say that, that's really what this is when we come here. So that's how I feel about this movie. I'm not religious at all. And so for me, my lens is different also as far as like the faith-based aspect. But even the person who said, so what if it's a faith-based movie? It doesn't have to be. And it was funny because I, who is not faith anything, I'm the one who actually feels like, no, I would have been more immersed. I was here for it, to see the faith-based aspect, but also to see the unraveling. When I saw the premise of this movie, I was so intrigued to see how somebody was going to pull somebody past all those layers of grief. And then when that didn't happen, I was just ultimately disappointed. So thank you again thank you for the community, every one of you, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much, Pearl. That's very sweet. Thank you. Mr. C?
Yeah, so I don't have strong feelings towards this film. It's honestly not the worst one to end the year on. I think it's fine, but ultimately too superficial to satisfy me. But yeah, not the worst for like watching. And yeah, also just thank you everyone for a fantastic year of Film Club. Not a film, but a film club. See you all next year. Happy holidays to everyone and have a great new year.
All right. And yeah, for me, I think I probably don't like this movie more than I don't know what it is about this film. I really don't like this film, and I think I've been trying to judge whether it's because of my expectation of BB that made me not like it. But yeah, because like again, given what I saw from God Calling, I feel like if I were like if I was a much more devout Christian, God Calling would have been my jam. Like if I was just there for the Christian message, I think God Calling would have been my jam. I thought it pushed the boundaries of filmmaking back then. That Third Mainland Bridge thing I thought was actually decently done. I remember watching and going, wait, hang on, how they? Oh, okay. And it took me a couple of takes to realize what they were doing. And in this, BB still shows that he knows stuff about filmmaking, but like the writing is just so off, and the way the film is put together is just so shallow, and it felt like this wasn't his film that he wanted to make. In a weird way. I don't know what it was, but like it's just so disappointing on so many levels. I didn't like any. I really didn't like. I don't think it's crazy to say I don't think I liked any scene in it. Nothing really worked for me. But it's good to come in here, rant or something. Anyway, but thank you for everybody who's been joining us. Nollywood Film Club's last space of the year. The podcast will still have episodes drop tomorrow and then the weeks after that, because there's some episodes from the vault. So if you miss us too much, I guess you can listen out for those. We're also putting out a thing, we're also putting out like a feedback kind of thing. I think it's on the thing there. You can give us feedback, anything we can do to make Film Club better for 2024. Please let us know. But thank you guys so much for coming. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whichever one is, whatever you're doing. If you're working, I'm so sorry. But I hope you have a lovely break from Film Club at least. Nobody's going to make you watch Nollywood movies for a while. But if you can still do it, I guess. But come back. Just come back we'll be back in the new year to discuss more Nollywood movies. But thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you next year.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Or
I
any
miss
other
you
day
guys.
I miss you too, Vanessa. I'll miss you making fun of Mr. Steve.
Don't worry, I'll do it. It's not ending. Film Club
I
just will
know.
hear
Next
it.
year,
But
yeah.
he will collect even over the break. He will collect over the break. Don't mind him.
Oh, that's good.
Why am I letting this?
No, I wish you the best, Mr. Steve. It's not.
Thanks for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed listening and would like to join live, just follow us on Twitter at IrokoCritic and join us every Sunday, 6 p.m. West African time on our spaces.